Yo legends. Welcome to Fanfiction Legend. Grab your headphones, because today's story is about to hit different. Disclaimer. I do not claim ownership of this story. All rights belong to the original creators. Marvel, fighting against Avengers. Page 41. What's stopping him? The Secretary of State has the power of pardon. No one can touch him without a legitimate reason. Then we should first investigate the source of the immortality potion, find out the truth and find evidence. Hill turned to Nick Fury and asked, currently, we only know that the immortality potion came from a military base laboratory. Who should we send to investigate? Nick Fury pondered for a moment and said, it's not appropriate for the Avengers to come forward. Leave this matter to me. S.H.I.E.L.D. is discussing strategy, while Rory has already produced the first batch of immortality potion. Ross has brought the first batch of users of the immortality potion to the laboratory. The first person to be injected with the immortality potion was a high-ranking military general. Before Rory injected him, the general suddenly asked, Sir, I would like to know if the immortality potion is disposable or reusable. If there is sufficient raw material, a second or third injection can indeed be given, but the effect will be greatly reduced. What are the raw materials? God's bone marrow. Chapter 53, running all the way on the road to becoming stronger. The immortality potion was just a small incident for Rory. He focused all his energy on the research of the God's genes. After repeated tests during this period, it has been basically confirmed that Rory's bone marrow can integrate the God gene, and it seems that rejection will only occur when using enhanced serum. Although Rory strengthened himself, he did not use the serum to strengthen his own genes, but used the Eternals genes to replace his own genes. There is a big difference between the two. After recording the experimental data, Rory stood up and walked out of the laboratory. He took off his mask and goggles and asked Ross, who had been waiting for a long time, hasn't the first batch of immortality potion been used? Why are you still looking for me? After not seeing each other for a few days, Ross looked very healthy and rosy-cheeked, and even the number of white hairs on his head had decreased a lot. Seeing Rory coming out of the laboratory, Ross stepped forward and said with a smile, I want to know when the second batch of immortality potion can be completed. There are still many people waiting. If possible, I hope you can make more. Rory shook his head, impossible, there are no raw materials at the moment, let's wait a while. Rory didn't understand the dirtiness of politicians, but he knew that he couldn't satisfy these people easily. If he didn't whet their appetites, they wouldn't work hard. Ross said hurriedly, you said you needed the bone marrow of a god. Could it be from Asgard? If it were me, I would immediately arrange for someone to find a way to get it for you. You want to go to Asgard to traffic in human beings? Rory rolled his eyes and turned away. Ross quickly caught up with Rory and asked curiously, not Asgardians? Could there be other aliens? The Earth has been visited by aliens many times in recent years. Ross has seen all kinds of aliens and even had personal contact with a few of them. Rory took off the rubber gloves he was using for the experiment and threw them into the trash can. He said, it's true that they are aliens, but not entirely correct. The Protoss and humans share the same genes, but they possess nearly eternal life. I extracted the longevity potion element from them. The number of Protoss living on Earth is extremely small, no more than 10 in total. The amount of potion elements that can be extracted from each Protoss can only support the use of 50 people at most, so you'd better consider this carefully when selecting users for the immortality potion. Ross was stunned. He knew that the eternal potion was precious, but he didn't expect it to be so precious. According to Rory, there are only 500 doses of the immortality potion at most. Even if it is not reused, it can only be used by people at most. How many American politicians can use it more than? Rory, can't we think of another way? Or maybe we can cultivate this element ourselves. What are you dreaming about? Of course Rory was lying to him. The God gene only played an auxiliary purification role. What was really needed was the mold in the mouse's saliva. If it is not said to be precious, how can Ross cherish it? How can those top leaders who are trying their best to prolong their lives be willing to work for him? Rory turned to look at Ross and said, I'll be away for a while after I finish my experiments. If I'm lucky, I'll bring back some elements for the eternity potion. What you have to do now is to hurry up and run for president, and then help me deal with S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers. It would be best to disband the Avengers, and then capture those superpowered people one by one and let him study them carefully. Ross hardly listened to what he said next, his focus entirely on what Rory said about leaving. Dr. Rory, are you leaving? Rory's support is very important to him. With Rory, Ross has the confidence to fight against those with superpowers. Apart from Rory's identity as a scientist, he is still a powerful figure who can fight against the Avengers alone. Moreover, Ross still had to continue using the immortality potion to win over politicians. If Rory left at this time, it would be like jumping off the car halfway. Without Rory's help, he would not be able to drive the car to the destination by himself. Rory can control Ross, but Ross has no way to deal with Rory. Don't worry, I'm just leaving for a while. I'm not going to come back. What are you afraid of? Besides, if I don't go looking for the elements to make the immortality potion, will you go and find it? In the next few days, Rory began to try various experiments on the god gene. Various experiments were conducted using the blood and bone marrow of guinea pigs, Mr. Immortal, Captain America, and Rory's own blood and bone marrow. After countless calculations and deductions, the day finally arrived when Rory was injected with the god's gene for the first time. Rory dismissed everyone and locked himself in the underground laboratory to prepare to start the injection experiment. According to his own calculations, the success rate is probably over 90%. Although there is still a possibility of failure, Rory must give it a try. The longer he delays, the more dangerous he will be. Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch may come back at any time, and there are also Thor and Captain Marvel, two ridiculously powerful guys. Rory inserted the syringe containing the celestial gene into the robotic arm, then secured himself to the chair, holding the remote control that controlled the robotic arm in his hand. Connect to the body data monitoring and turn on the lightwave X-ray machine to scan yourself. After finding the correct position, control the robotic arm to the predetermined injection position. After taking a deep breath, he controlled the robotic arm to start working. The needle made of vibranium is inserted into the body little by little with the support of a powerful hydraulic system. The lightwave X-ray machine can clearly see the position of the needle, and if there is any mistake, Rory can immediately terminate the injection test. Well, the pain will not disappear as the body becomes stronger, and the sensation of pain may even increase as the nerves become more sensitive. Poof. The vibranium needle was inserted accurately, and Rory's heart was lifted again. After a moment, he pressed the switch on the remote control, and the god gene immediately flowed into the needle along the hose and was injected into the bone marrow. After all the god genes were injected, the robotic arm started the automatic program and immediately pulled out. Crunch. Crunch. Rory's teeth squeaked as he bit them, and indescribable pain spread throughout his body. Roar. Boom. Rory roared and struggled to break free from the fixed chair. He swept his arms hard and the fixed chair flew out in the next second, smashing the glass wall of the laboratory with a crash. The pain was unbearable, and Rory kept pounding the ground with his fists, trying to relieve the pain. Boom. 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 He hammered several deep holes into the solid floor of the laboratory. The experimental table was blown away and the experimental equipment was smashed to pieces, but even so, the piercing pain still could not be relieved. Rory actually ran madly towards a wall, and the 20-centimeter thick wall was hit through by him. Rumble. I don't know how much time has passed, and the laboratory fell into an eerie silence, as if it had been hit by a typhoon. Rory was lying in the ruins covered in dust. Suddenly, a finger moved twice, and the unconscious Rory slowly opened his eyes. Chapter 54 Nick Fury's backbone returns. Rory lifted a chair from the ruined laboratory and managed to climb onto it and sit down. At this moment, he could clearly feel a surge of energy in his body. After trying several times, he found that he could not mobilize this energy, as if it had its own thoughts. This feeling is very strange. After resting for a while and walking around, I stood up and went to the refrigerator. Except for the 2 serums that needed to be kept, all the rest were destroyed. Since the experiment has been successful, there is no need to keep any of these, including formatting all the experimental data in the computer. Then he opened the closed door of the laboratory and said to the research assistant outside, "Send someone to clean up and send a batch of new equipment over." "Okay, Dr. Rory." The laboratory was a bit dusty, and Rory needed to breathe some fresh air and think about how to use cosmic energy. The training ground is not far from the experimental area, and you can hear the whistle coming from there as soon as you walk out of the laboratory building. With blue sky, white clouds, and a gentle breeze, today is indeed a sunny and beautiful day for Rory. Sitting on the grass, Rory raised his hand and clenched his fist. There was no change in strength, but he could clearly feel a surge of energy in his palm. After trying for a long time and still being unable to mobilize it, Rory thought he needed a teacher who could teach him how to use energy. Of the 10 Eternals, Phastos, who lived in Chicago, was the easiest to find, but Phastos had been dismantled. Chief Ajak is relatively friendly and currently lives in the wilderness of South Dakota, but it will take some effort to find her. Tina and Gilgamesh live in Australia, so they are also hard to find. Moreover, they are 2 of them together, so even if you find them, you may not be able to defeat them. The 3 easiest Eternals to find are Golden Fruit in Bollywood, Mumbai, and Circe and the Gremlins in the London Museum. Rory dislikes Mumbai and doesn't want to go there. Looking for Circe might lead to Icarus, the fake Superman. After analyzing it, it seems more reliable to look for Ajax. Ajax's combat ability is basically equal to 0, so Rory is not afraid even if he attacks him. After thinking it through, Rory immediately called Ross. Shield. Page 42. Nick Fury came out of the office and stopped the second-generation Hawkeye Kate, who was about to go to the training ground, and asked, "Kate, have you seen Clint?" Kate shook her head. "No, I haven't seen him for many days." "Has he contacted you?" Kate shook her head. Nick Fury rubbed his bald head with his hand in pain. The assessment of the new Avengers was about to begin, but Clint Barton was missing. It was really frustrating. Nick Fury didn't know what kind of blow Hawkeye Barton had suffered. If it were someone else, he might have gone crazy long ago. In Patton's heart, Natasha sacrificed herself for everyone, but Rory told him that he and Natasha were both deceived by that red-faced guy. Who could bear this? If Natasha had known this earlier, would she have avoided death? Self-blame, regret, guilt, sadness and all other negative emotions filled Patton's heart. He didn't dare go back to the base, and was even more afraid of meeting Natasha's sister Yelena. Just as Nick Fury was thinking about how to find Clint Barton, a golden light suddenly appeared outside the base, and it headed straight for the base with a long tail flame. Nick Fury felt relaxed all over when he saw the golden light. It's stable this time. When the golden light appeared, SHIELD suddenly became lively, and almost everyone ran out to catch a glimpse of Captain Marvel. Carol Danvers, shining with gold, slowly landed on the ground, and someone immediately rushed up to ask for her autograph. "Papa Papa." Nick Fury clapped his hands and walked over, shouting, "All right everyone, get back to your work immediately, and don't make me say it again." Nick Fury activated the interstellar pager and called Captain Marvel back from distant outer space. Captain Marvel Carol walked up to Nick Fury and asked, "They didn't call me back so urgently just to sign for them, did they? Go in and talk." Nick Fury was in no mood to joke around. After bringing Carol back to his office, he immediately released the video of Rory and the Avengers fighting in New York. After reading it, Captain Marvel Carol asked, "Where is this person now?" "It's at a military base in the suburbs." "Hey Carol, don't be impulsive." Carol turned around and was about to go find Rory, but Nick Fury quickly stopped her and said, "Listen, he's currently a research consultant for a military laboratory. If you take action inside a military base, SHIELD, and the Avengers will be held responsible." Carol came from the Air Force, so he naturally knew that now was not the time to act impulsively. After 2 seconds of silence, he whispered, "I'll go check on Steve and Sam. Let me know if there's any news." Nick Fury breathed a sigh of relief and immediately arranged for someone to take Carol to the cemetery where Steve and Sam were buried. Standing by the office window and watching Carol leave in the car, Nick Fury immediately took out his cell phone and called Carlson and Hill respectively. Request to speed up the investigation of the immortality potion. After returning from the cemetery, Carol went to visit her good friend Maria again. They chatted until around 9 o'clock in the evening, then she turned into a golden light and flew into the night sky. Soon it flew over a military base outside New York. After observing for a while, it headed straight for the only 2-story villa in the base. Rory sat on the cigar chair, writing something in his notebook with a pen. Suddenly, it became bright outside the window, and if you didn't know, you would think it was daybreak. Rory showed a cautious look, put down his notebook, stood up, pushed the door open and walked out of the villa in his slippers. One was standing on the steps in front of the door, and the other was floating in the air 2 meters above the ground. A man and a woman were looking at each other. "Are you Rory?" "Captain Marvel Carol." Carol slowly floated to a few meters away from Rory, looked down at Rory and said, "If you know what's good for you, come back with me." Rory asked with a smile, "Do you dare to do it here?" The flying ability restrains all superpowers. When encountering an opponent he cannot defeat, he just turns around and runs away, making him completely invincible. Rory is very envious of him. If Rory could fly, he could poke a hole in the earth. "Do you really want me to do it?" "You can try." Rory didn't believe Carol would do anything. Carol was very strong, but she also had a lot of concerns, and she was not someone who liked to cause trouble for her friends and family. And Rory didn't think he would definitely lose. What could really restrain Rory was not fists, but magic. The two of them stood facing each other for a moment. Carol had seen Rory's battle videos and knew that Rory also possessed powerful strength, so she came here today just to test Rory. If she had the chance, she would still choose to take action, but now after seeing Rory, Carol gave up the idea. Then he turned into a golden light and left the military base. Rory didn't return to the room until Carol disappeared. Captain Marvel Carol has returned to Earth, and time is running out for Rory. Thanks to the book friend Yuing Fengjia for the reward. Chapter 55 The Eternals Weak Leader teaches me internal Kung Fu. Ross quickly found out about Ajak. She did not hide her real name and even had her own credit card, so her relevant information was quickly found. The photo was sent to Rory, and after confirmation, a military plane was immediately arranged for Rory to fly directly to South Dakota. On a farm in the countryside of South Dakota, a Jack is the only person living within a few kilometers. A Jack has lived here for many years. When he has nothing to do, he farms or reports the situation on Earth to Luo, the six-barreled god. After Master Me was killed, half of the human population on Earth disappeared, which delayed the awakening of the Earth's incubation god, Tiamu. However, no one expected that he would be rescued by the Avengers later. As the time for Tiamu to wake up approaches, a Jack becomes more and more uneasy. Late at night, a Jack lit the fireplace and was about to contact the six-barreled god when there was a knock on the door. A Jack was obviously stunned for a moment. She couldn't remember how many years it had been since there had been any guests here. Opening the door, a Jack realized she didn't recognize the person and asked kindly, "Hello, what can I do for you?" "Excuse me, are you Ms. Jack?" It was Rory who appeared outside the door. A Jack nodded, staring at Rory with a questioning look. Rory smiled faintly and said, "My name is Rory. I have something I want to ask you. I wonder if it would be convenient for me to come in and talk." Ajax nodded, invited Rory into the house, went to the kitchen to pour a cup of coffee and handed it to Rory, and then the two sat in front of the fireplace. The firelight from the fireplace reflected on her profile. After pulling a blanket over her legs, he casually asked, "Are you the new tenant living around here?" "No, I'm from New York." Ajax's face changed. She originally thought that Rory was from nearby, but she didn't expect that he came all the way here just for her. She seldom came into contact with humans, let alone had any friends in New York, so she immediately asked Rory why he had come. "Did you come all the way here to see me? We don't seem to be familiar with each other." Rory's smile didn't fade as he said, "I'm here for only one reason, which is to learn something about the Eternals and cosmic energy." As soon as the word Eternals came out, a Jack immediately showed a defensive look. Rory continued, "Don't be nervous. The Eternals have left behind a lot of history, and you guys don't act in a low-key manner. It's easy to find clues in this regard." Ajax said coldly, "I'm sorry, I don't know what you are talking about. If you have nothing else, please leave immediately." After dealing with the deviants, the Eternals reached a consensus not to interfere with human society. She would never reveal the secrets of the Eternals to a human. Rory came here from afar, so it is impossible for him to be sent away by a Jack with just a few words. He sat motionless on the chair and laughed, "No one can make me leave here until I get what I want. What do you want to do?" Although a Jack is the leader of the 10 Eternals, her superpower is healing, and her combat power is the lowest among the 10. He can't even beat some ordinary human superpowered people. A Jack quietly took out his cell phone and dialed a number under the blanket, but it showed no signal. He tried to call several times but failed. Rory looked at the bonfire in the fireplace and said calmly, "Don't waste your time. I'm wearing a signal blocker. Don't even think about sending out any electronic signals. Who are you and what do you want to do?" Seeing that the call had been dialed, a Jack simply took out his phone and threw it aside. Rory stopped beating around the bush and said bluntly, "I just want to know how to use cosmic energy. I can clearly feel the energy in my body, but I can't mobilize it. As long as you tell me how to use it, I will leave immediately." A Jack seemed to have heard something out of the blue. He shook his head firmly and said, "Impossible. Cosmic energy is a power bestowed upon the Eternals by the gods. Humans cannot mobilize it. To be more precise, humans cannot even sense cosmic energy. 6 Infinity Stones were born at the beginning of the universe. These 6 stones represent the most primitive energy of the universe. The Celestials were born earlier than the universe, and they learned to use the energy after the formation of the universe. Use energy to create galaxies, create the sun and life, and then use life to give birth to new gods. Only life forms transformed by the gods can use cosmic energy, because cosmic energy and life energy cannot coexist in an individual at the same time, otherwise new gods cannot be hatched. This is the operating rule of energy interaction among the gods." Rory shook his head, "To be precise, I am no longer human. Like you, I have more eternal genes in my body. That's why I came all the way to find you. Are you an eternal?" A Jack was shocked and immediately reached out to hold Rory's hand. A surge of energy flowed from her body into Rory's body. After the detection, a Jack was indeed surprised. "You mean they were originally humans, but later became Eternals?" "Yes, that's it, so would you be willing to teach me how to use this energy?" Page 43. Rory didn't know what he was, just ordinary human genes, and then his genetic code was reprogrammed through serum, replacing his own genes with the genes of the Titans, a branch of the Eternals. Then the God gene was injected into the bone marrow, causing cosmic energy to appear in the body. human genes, Titan eternal branch genes, and celestial transformation genes, the three combined together to create the current Rory. Ajak did not have professional equipment and could not analyze Rory's genetic sequence, but she could feel the cosmic energy in Rory's body, so she tacitly accepted the fact that Rory was an eternal. Ajak was shocked for a moment before he came to his senses and asked, "Can you tell me how you?" "Thanos, I used Thanos' blood to make a serum to strengthen myself." Ajak nodded with an expression that said, "No wonder." After the talk was over, Ajak started talking to Rory about the use of cosmic energy. The body is the carrier of cosmic energy. This energy is like a program that needs to be written by the user to gain different superpowers. Right? How to do it? Rory was confused. Ajak smiled slightly and said, "You need to experience it with your heart, feel the flow of energy, and then guide the energy to change according to your ideas." Rory's first thought was to use cosmic energy to make himself fly. With his current physical condition, if he could have the ability to fly, he would be almost invincible. Among the several superheroes who are currently known to be able to fly, Captain Marvel relies on the principle of jet energy to fly, Thor relies on Stormbreaker, and Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange rely on magic manipulation of other dimensions. It is completely different from the cosmic energy operation mode that Ajak mentioned. Rory closed his eyes and carefully felt the flow of cosmic energy. As long as he felt it, this energy would immediately appear in his blood, spread throughout his body and flow with the blood, but it was uncontrollable. Rory closed his eyes and could not see the changes happening in his body. Now his whole body was glowing with a faint golden light. After a while, golden light began to gather towards Rory's palms and form two balls of light. Chapter 56. It glows, it looks pretty golden. Under Ajak's guidance, Rory slowly mobilized the cosmic energy in his body. When he opened his eyes, the two golden balls of light gathered in his hands immediately began to change. It first turned into a dagger, then slowly stretched into a rapier. The rapier continued to stretch and widen, and the energy of both hands was gathered together to turn into a golden sword, which looked like a Geza sword. Curious, Rory just danced lightly and instantly split the coffee table in front of him and the bottom into two sections. Similar to Tina's abilities, both are superpowers with strong combat capabilities. After hearing this, Rory was stunned. What he wanted was not the superpower of transforming weapons, but flying. He instantly put away the transformed golden weapon and asked hurriedly, "What should I do if I want to fly using cosmic energy?" Ajak shook his head. "I only know how the energy of the universe works. Wardfa. Transmogrified weapons are useless. You can just grab some vibranium and make one." What he wants is to fly. Rory stayed here for 2 days and then returned to the military base. During these 2 days, Ajax told him some history about the Eternals, including some stories that happened on other planets in the universe. Rory also thought about changing Ajax's fate in the past 2 days, but after careful consideration, he finally gave up the idea. Ajak hopes to save the Earth and wants to find a win-win solution without affecting the awakening of Tiamut, a god. However, such a solution does not exist at all. As long as Tiamut wakes up, the Earth will be destroyed. Between the awakening of the Celestials and saving the Earth, Ajak will definitely choose the awakening of the Celestials because she has made a similar choice before. Ajak is the only one who knows the truth. If she wanted to save the Earth, she would not have waited until now and hesitated, so she must die, and she must die at the hands of the fake Superman Icarus. Only in this way will Circe stand on the side of mankind and save the Earth. Rory also mastered the use of cosmic energy in these 2 days. Just by raising your hand, you can conjure up all kinds of weapons. The weapons conjured from cosmic energy are extremely strong, even stronger than vibranium, and are extremely sharp. The golden color looks pretty good. After becoming proficient, Rory will add some patterns or runes to the transformed weapons to make them look more advanced. On the 3rd day after Rory left, another visitor came to Ajak's house. Icarus, a copycat Superman and one of the 10 Eternals, has the ability to fly, his eyes can emit cosmic energy beams, super strength and endurance, and is the strongest among the 10 Eternals. He took Ajak to a place where abnormal people who had been eliminated thousands of years ago appeared. Ajak now understood that Icarus had brought her here to kill her. The reason is simple. Icarus is loyal to the Celestials. He will not allow anyone to stop the gods from appearing, not even his fellow Eternals. There was a conflict of ideas between the two people, and the extreme-minded Icarus chose the most direct way to solve the problem. Instead of doing it himself, Icarus threw Ajak to the Deviant and watched Ajak being killed by the Deviant. On the return military plane, Rory continued to feel the cosmic energy in his body. He wanted to try to develop other superpowers. According to Ajak's explanation, cosmic energy is everywhere, and the Eternals who can use cosmic energy are just a medium that transforms the invisible cosmic energy into a form that can be seen and used. When the military plane was halfway through its journey and about to enter Ohio, the fuselage suddenly vibrated violently and then descended uncontrollably towards the ground. The alarm in the cabin kept sounding and the pilot kept calling the ground control center. Just as the military plane was about to hit the ground, its speed slowed down and finally landed lightly on a field covered with weeds. Bang clang. The cabin door suddenly broke open, was forcibly broken off, and flew dozens of meters away with a whoosh. Then a woman covered in golden light floated in from the doorway. Captain Marvel Carol turned her head to look at Rory, then floated in front of Rory and said, "We are not in a military base now. Let's see what you can do this time." Luo Rui's mouth curled up. To be precise, the military aircraft also belongs to the military territory. "Congratulations, Carol, you have successfully caused trouble for your friend." Rory unbuckled his seatbelt and walked over to Carol, his smile still fading as he continued, "There's one more thing I want to correct. I've never been afraid of you from the beginning to the end, so please don't misunderstand me." Carol frowned, snorted coldly, and raised her hand to grab Rory. Rory was so fast that Carol didn't even have time to react before being punched in the chest by Rory. Boom. Rory was still in a punching stance, but Carol, who was beaten, had already flown out through the front windshield of it. Carol has a certain level of fighting skills, and with the help of her superpowers, she has strong defense and powerful strength and energy offensive means, but her body speed and nerve reaction speed are really average. Bang. Luo Rui jumped up suddenly, broke through the cabin and jumped out. At this time, Carol had already stood up from the ground. Looking at Rory, who came out of the military plane on his own initiative, golden light appeared on Carol's body again, and he flew close to the ground and rushed towards Rory quickly. Rory stood there calmly until Carol was about to fly in front of his face, when a huge golden sword suddenly appeared in Rory's hand. Boom. Carol came and went quickly, and was knocked away by Rory's sword. Carol flew backwards and plowed a long ditch on the ground. Luo Rui curled his lips in disdain. "That's it?" Carol got up in a daze and found that Rory had nothing in his hand, but he had just. Carol, who didn't believe in evil but was much more cautious, rushed towards Rory again. Swish. The giant sword in Luo Rui's hand appeared again. When Carol rushed towards Rory, Rory also ran towards Carol with a huge sword in hand. Ding. This time, Carol was prepared and used her arm to block the giant sword, and aimed her other hand at Rory to release an energy wave. When the energy wave just lit up, a huge golden square shield instantly appeared in Luo Rui's other hand. Puff. The energy wave collided with the golden shield and instantly dissipated, leaving only a little scattered energy aftermath. "Carol, why do you think you can beat me alone?" Snapped. Luo Rui put his hands together, and two cosmic energies appeared at the same time and merged together. A supergiant sword with a blade more than 2 meters long was transformed by him. Seeing this, Carol quickly retreated backwards, but Rory was even faster, running towards Carol with his legs madly. One retreated and the other advanced, but the distance between them did not widen. Boom. The giant sword fell and knocked the flying Carol to the ground. One sword strike wasn't enough, Luo Rui raised his hand and continued to smash. Boom. Boom. Carol wanted to run, but was held down by the giant sword every time. After several heavy blows, the energy in her body flickered, and Rory used the giant sword to smash a deep pit of more than 1 meter in her body. The surrounding mud flew everywhere, and Carol lay in a deep pit in a mess. Luo Rui stood at the edge of the pit and smiled faintly. "You can't do it either." Although Luo Rui did not become stronger physically after fusing with the god's gene, he gained more offensive means. He was no longer a reckless man who could only rely on his fists. Both offense and defense became more flexible. Captain Marvel Carol was knocked so hard that her whole body felt like it was falling apart. Just as Rory's giant sword was about to fall again, she gritted her teeth and held on with her hands to send out a powerful energy shock wave. Although she failed to repel Rory, she blocked the giant sword that was about to fall. Carol took the opportunity to fly out of the deep pit immediately. She didn't dare to stop for even a second and quickly flew high to get out of the attack range of Rory's giant sword. Chapter 57, The Exchange of Strength and Power, the First Step to a Dynasty. Luo Rui looked up at the sky in frustration. "Carol, are you going to fight or not? If you don't come down, I'm leaving." Page 44. Captain Marvel Carol sneered, "This time it's my turn." As soon as he finished speaking, he began to circle above Luo Rui's head, and after accumulating energy in his hands for a moment, he shot it towards Luo Rui with a whoosh. Puff. The great sword in Luo Rui's hand turned into a shield. Although this attack could not cause any harm to him, it was really annoying. It can't fly and has no long-range attack capabilities, so it can only passively take the beating. At this time, the soldiers in the military aircraft had already contacted the base and reinforcements would arrive soon. Several other soldiers walked out of the plane with rifles, aimed at Carol and shouted, "Madam, Please stop what you are doing. Although you are a superhero, Dr. Rory is a military researcher. If you don't stop. Carol was fighting happily at this time, with energy waves hitting Rory's energy shield one after another, but when she heard the soldier's warning, she suddenly froze in mid-air. She used to be a member of the military, but was later taken to an alien planet by the Kree and trained to be a warrior. She also fought against Thanos to save the entire universe. But now the military soldiers actually pointed their guns at her, which made her feel that she was the villain. The next second, Rory suddenly jumped up, swung his sword and slashed at the stunned Captain Marvel Carol. She was no match for Rory on the ground, but the sky was her territory. She easily dodged Rory's sword and did not pursue him. Instead, she watched Rory fall back to the ground and said coldly, "Let's see how long you can be so proud." After saying that, he turned around and flew away. After the fight, Carol knew that he could not defeat Rory. The energy shockwave was ineffective against Rory, and he was no match for Rory in ground combat. Continuing would only be a waste of time. The most important thing was that the ordinary soldier pointed his gun at her, which almost broke Carol's mentality. Watching Carol disappear into a streak of golden light, Rory put away his magical sword and returned to the military plane. Has the base been contacted? We've contacted the base. They'll be here in about 10 minutes. The base will first arrange a plane to pick up Rory, and then arrange engineering vehicles to deal with the military aircraft that landed in the wild. The military will definitely blame Carol for this. Perhaps Secretary of State Ross will use this opportunity to hold a press conference and hearing to ask Carol to sign her name to the Sokovia Accords. If he doesn't sign, the pressure will be put on S.H.I.E.L.D. After all, S.H.I.E.L.D. sued Ross to Congress for endangering national security. Now that Captain Marvel has attacked a military aircraft, she will naturally be charged with the same crime. Rory took another military plane back to the military base. After getting off the plane, the first thing he did was go to the underground laboratory. Mr. Immortal Hollis was playing cards with some lab assistants. Seeing Rory coming back, he immediately threw down the playing cards in his hand and asked, "Hey Mr. Rory, I thought you were arrested. I haven't seen you for several days." Rory put on his white coat and said, "Why do you care so much about me?" Mr. Immortal Hollis shrugged. "Those soldiers won't let me go when you're not here. You have no idea how hard life is here." Hollis just wanted to get away from his wives for a while, not really want to quit masturbating. After spending some time together, Rory already knew what kind of person Hollis was. He snorted and walked into the experimental area. "Mr. Hollis, please be patient. There are still a few experiments to be completed. I will let you go in a few days. The laboratory destroyed by Rory has been cleaned up and all the equipment has been replaced." He took out a vibranium needle, drew some blood from his body, and immediately began an observation experiment. Rory can now fully mobilize the energy of the universe. He wants to know how this is related to the genes in his body, and perhaps find a way to obtain other superpowers. After observation, it was found that the activity of blood cells had increased a lot, and the cell membranes contained much more substances that could conduct cosmic energy. But what limits Rory's use of cosmic energy is not in his blood. He tried to shoot energy rays from his eyes like a Karis, or to shoot energy beams from his hands like Jingguo, but no matter how he tried, he couldn't do it. What the hell is going on? Rory studied it for a long time but still couldn't figure it out. He didn't even know how cosmic energy worked. He only knew that his body maintained its own energy usage by absorbing the surrounding cosmic energy. But that's about it. They were busy until late at night until the assistant came and found Rory. "Dr. Rory, Mr. Ross wants to see you." "Where is he?" "Wait for you at your residence." Rory nodded, took off his gloves and mask, walked out of the test area, and hung his white coat on the hanger. When I returned to my residence, Secretary of State Ross was sitting in front of the fireplace, roasting a bonfire with whiskey in one hand and a cigar in the other. Rory walked to the bar and poured himself a glass of water, then came over and sat across from Ross. "The serum is ready and the test can begin anytime." Ross smiled and waved his hand. "That's not why I came here today. I just want to ask you what's going on with you and Captain Marvel Carol." Ross has learned about Rory and Carol's battle process from military reports, and Carol still retains her military status to this day. When Carol disappeared, she was judged to have sacrificed her life, and her file was sealed, but she still belonged to the enlisted military personnel. However, no one expected that she would still be alive. When Carol reappeared, she had become a very powerful superpowered person, so the military maintained this relationship until now. Rory said indifferently, "What else could it be? Of course he wants to capture me and take me back to avenge Steve." Ross's opinion of Steve is no less than Hulk's. Don't forget, it was Steve who took the lead in opposing the Sokovia Accords he proposed. But she failed. "I didn't expect that even Captain Marvel was no match for you." Ross's eyes gleamed. Based on this record alone, Ross believes that there is nothing wrong with his cooperation with Lowry. At this time, Ross also had a plan to form a group of superpowered people, centered around Rory, and then replace the Avengers and shield. Rory didn't know what Ross was thinking, so he just said calmly, "It's not a win, it's a draw at best. Carol can fly but he can't, and Rory is helpless about this." Secretary of State Ross sipped his cigar and smiled, "Leave this matter to me. I will restrict Captain Marvel's actions in the name of the country, and by the way, let shield also have a taste of being a defendant." Ross then added, "I have submitted an application to run as an independent presidential candidate. I will begin participating in roadshows and debates next month. Members of the Eternal Life Society will help me raise funds and votes." Luo Rui had no interest in politics. He yawned and said, "You don't need to tell me about this. Just do what you promised me. I mean, when will the second batch of immortality potions be ready? It has been a while since the first batch of immortality potions were successfully injected. No adverse reactions have occurred so far. After examination, the people who received the injections have shown obvious improvement in their health, which immediately aroused the interest of those who were watching." Luo Rui thought for a moment and said, "There's still a little raw material left. I can give you enough for up to 10 people, but you have to send me blood samples from the users for testing first." Although Ross didn't understand why Rory wanted to test the blood sample first, he didn't ask any more questions and agreed. "P.S. It's the last day of February, brothers, don't hold on to your tickets, just hand them all over." Chapter 58, The New Avengers Prepare to Fight the Destroyer. When he woke up in the morning, Luo Rui walked outside and put his hands together to form a giant golden sword. Gather all the energy in your body into your hands, hoping to increase the use of cosmic energy through exercise. But no matter how hard he tried, the limit of the transformed greatsword was only about 2.5 meters. This is the limit of the universe's energy, not Luo Rui's limit. Luo Rui is like a data cable. How much data can be transmitted does not depend on him, but on the amount of cosmic energy entering his body. It seemed that something was limiting the speed at which Luo Rui absorbed energy, perhaps a limitation left by the Celestials when they transformed the Eternals. New Avengers Base. Nick Fury, whose face was as black as charcoal, looked at Captain Marvel Carol unhappily, while Carol had an indifferent expression on her face. Just 10 minutes ago, Nick Fury received documents from the hearing asking Carol and shield to give a reasonable explanation for the attack on the military aircraft. Carol, who retained his military status, also received a summons from the military court. There was originally a chance to deal with Secretary of State Ross, but now because of this incident, S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers have immediately fallen into a passive position. "Carol, don't go anywhere for the time being. I'll take care of the rest. Also, I'll have the final say on when to take action in the future." Carol curled her lips and said nothing. Swish. A portal suddenly appeared in Nick Fury's office, and the wizard named Wong helped the weak Doctor Strange through the portal and into the office. "Doctor Strange? What are you doing?" After the Battle of New York, Strange and Wanda both fell into a dimensional rift and were never seen again. Nick Fury didn't expect him to appear here suddenly. He immediately stepped forward to inquire about the situation. "Are you injured? How is Wanda?" "Captain Marvel is back, and if joined by Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch, they will definitely be able to take down Rory in one fell swoop." Strange shook his head. "I was rescued by the Sorcerer Supreme of another universe. Wanda is still imprisoned in the dimensional space." He had a fierce battle with Wanda. Since neither of them was an advanced wizard yet, they were considered evenly matched. After the two fell into the dimensional rift, they wanted to come back immediately, but due to the influence of the dimensional power, Strange could not open the dimensional rift again. Fortunately, he was able to communicate with the Supreme Sorcerer in other worlds, and thus he managed to save his life, but Wanda stayed there. Nick Fury quickly said, "Then why don't you bring Wanda back? I'm affected by the power of the dimension and can't do it for now. I need to rest for a while." Strange continued, "I came here this time to remind you one thing. Rory is the destroyer. When he grows up, he will be more terrifying than Thanos. We must catch him as soon as possible." Captain Marvel asked curiously, "What does destroyer mean?" Mage Wong supported Strange and explained, "It's a term used in the mage world. This type of person has the ability to interfere with the timeline. Once the direction of the timeline is changed, the entire timeline will be destroyed." Page 45. Strange added, "It was originally the Guardian Magus' responsibility to protect the timeline, but I lost the Eye of Agamotto and cannot deal with the destroyer alone. Therefore, I must gather more people to deal with him, the sooner the better." Nick Fury and Captain Marvel both understood. Luo Rui's existence will interfere with the normal operation of the world. If it is not dealt with in time, it is likely to cause big problems in the world. Nick Fury asked, Doctor Strange, can't you and Carol handle him together? Before Strange could speak, Carol responded, I just fought him. To be honest, he's very strong, especially his ability to conjure weapons. He can withstand a few hits without any problem, but if he hits me a few more times, even I would be hurt. He's gotten stronger again? Strange asked doubtfully, and what do you mean by conjuring up weapons? After Carol explained, Strange showed a look of surprise. You mean the golden light that can change shape at will? Carol nodded. We're in big trouble. The spells used by the Guardian Mage are also a kind of cosmic energy. After Carol described it, Strange knew that Rory was also controlling cosmic energy. The original Rory was almost invincible in terms of his physical body, and could even fight against Dr. Banner. If he adds the ability to control cosmic energy, even if he joins forces with Captain Marvel, they probably still won't be a match for Rory. Strange said helplessly, we need more help, and quickly. Everyone is aware of the seriousness of the problem. Nick Fury immediately called Maria Hill and ordered, Hill, go find Dr. Banner immediately. I'll go find Thor, Carol added. Nick Fury nodded and said, act immediately. I'll contact the other superpowered people. The second hearing will be in 3 days. If things don't go well, I'll do it. I can't care less. Strange said firmly. The problem of the Destroyer is a problem that gives all Supreme Mages a headache. Although the Destroyer will disappear after the timeline is destroyed, no one wants the world they live in to be destroyed. What gives Strange the most headache is not how strong Rory is, but that Rory has used time travel. If we can't deal with Rory and he escapes to another timeline, the consequences will be even more serious. In a short period of time, SHIELD gathered a large number of superpowered people. Now all they have to do is wait for Carol to find Thor, and once Strange is back in shape they can take action against Rory. Rory doesn't know that S.H.I.E.L.D. is gathering its forces to deal with him. He is now undergoing a super soldier serum enhancement experiment, in batches. Ross meant to form a team of super soldiers and use this team to replace the Avengers in protecting the world. Rory thought that it would be difficult for him to deal with the Avengers alone, and he needed a large army. The two hit it off and immediately began screening members of the super soldier program from the military. There are only 2 requirements, one is loyalty, and the other is absolute loyalty. Character and ability are not within Rory's consideration at all. Ross uses the immortality potion to win over politicians, while Rory uses the super serum to create an army. Rory came out of the laboratory and immediately called immortal Mr. Hollis over. Mr. Hollis, I need half a brain. Please bear with me for a moment. Hollis, dot. According to Rory's guess, Mr. Immortal's superpowers come from the entanglement between himself and the energy of the universe. It can be seen as another manifestation of cosmic energy. As long as cosmic energy exists, it is immortal. The problem is that Rory has never been able to find the reason for Hollis's immortality. Today, he suddenly has the urge to open Hollis's head and take a look. Thanks to the book Friend Death Godly Mang for the reward. Thank you brothers for your recommendation votes and monthly tickets, thank you brothers for your suggestions and likes. Chapter 59 A Heretic Who Wants to Resurrect Steve. Laboratory Assistant Angus is one of Secretary of State Ross's most trusted people, but he did not participate in the super soldier experiment. Instead, he was transferred to the Captain America research team. Angus, are you sure you've learned Rory's skills? Angus nodded confidently, yes, Mr. Ross, although I don't have Rory's experimental data, I have replicated his experimental process, and in the process I discovered many new things. In an office in a military base, Ross sat behind his desk and looked at Angus standing opposite him. His original intention of arranging Angus to enter Rory's laboratory was to supervise, but Angus had his own ideas and he even boldly replicated Rory's experiment. Although there were some unknown experimental materials missing, Angus was confident that he had received Rory's true teachings through his interpretation of the process. Angus is not only a mad scientist, but also a Captain America fan. So he proposed to Ross that he should be solely responsible for the experimental team. Ross frowned and asked, why do you insist on being transferred to the Captain America research team? Dr. Lowry has developed a gene cell activation technology. I want to see if I can revive Captain America. If I can, it will be the greatest advancement for mankind. Resurrection is a false proposition and a taboo in the biological field, but some researchers still believe that they can break the shackles of life, and some crazier ones even want to label themselves as gods. Mr. Immortal can be resurrected because he has superpowers. Even Rory, who is crazy enough, only did a simple study on it. After finding that it was impossible, he had no intention of continuing to study it in depth. Rory just wanted to have this ability, not to resurrect the dead. In the words of biologists, we study life, but we do not desecrate life. Angus clearly did not follow the order of life. Ross didn't understand this, And after a long hesitation, he agreed, "Okay, I'll put you in charge of the Captain America research team. You have 6 months to produce results. If you don't produce results within 6 months, you'll be kicked out." A separate area has been set aside within the military base for the manufacture and training of super soldiers. In the training ground, Rory is doing physical examination on a newly minted super soldier. Testing on the 17th super soldier is complete. Physical data is normal, and the strength increase of 137% meets the standards. After recording the data, Rory waved to super soldier number 17. Eat according to the dietary standards. Don't consume foods containing hormones until your body stabilizes. Come to the laboratory on time every day for blood tests. I want to know about your daily physical changes. Yes, sir. So far, Rory has created 17 super soldiers. At first, some soldiers who had just become super soldiers disobeyed management, but after being severely punished by Rory, they all became obedient. These soldiers are stronger than ordinary people, and even the most elite special forces are no match for them, but they are no match for Rory. Okay, go train. Make sure you get enough rest and don't overdraw your body's potential. Yes, sir. After the salute, soldier number 17 turned around and trotted back to the training ground, joining the other 16 super soldiers in training. Rory returned to the lab from the training ground. 17 sets of super soldier genetic data were input into the computer for comparison. The super serum improved by Rory is much more mature than the serum created by Dr. Erkins, and the effect is more stable. The only drawback is that due to the limitations of human genetic strength, the enhanced super soldiers barely reach B level and cannot be further improved. The next day, when Rory was about to start the strengthening test of super soldier number 18, Ross came over again. The hearing is over. Captain Marvel Carol has been restricted from using her superpowers, and SHIELD has been ordered by Congress to be investigated. Ross was in a good mood. This time, the attack on the superpowered person made him stand out in public, and the presidential candidate's online support rate soared. By the way, there is another piece of news that I think it is necessary to tell you. James Rhodes is missing. Rory asked doubtfully, "Isn't he dead yet?" Rory knew how powerful his kick was. If it were an ordinary person, he would have died long ago. Actually, no. When Rod was taken to the hospital, his cervical spine was broken. Only his head and right hand could move. But Rod suddenly disappeared from the nursing home yesterday. Rory pondered for a few seconds and then murmured, "Damn, could it be a Skrull?" "What did you say?" Ross didn't hear clearly and asked. "I said." Rory had just opened his mouth when a loud noise suddenly came from above his head. Rory and Ross in the underground laboratory both felt a noticeable vibration under their feet, and then the power suddenly went out, and the entire laboratory fell into darkness in an instant. Beep beep beep. The alarm sound and red alarm light go into operation at the same time. What's going on? Why is there a sudden earthquake? General Ross hid in the corner in fear. Rory said calmly, "It's not an earthquake, it's someone breaking in." "You mean the Avengers?" Swish. A sword appeared in Rory's hand, and with a casual stroke, he cut the metal door of the laboratory into 2 halves. The power was cut off and the elevator could no longer be used. Rory pushed open the elevator door and jumped up along the elevator shaft. He jumped twice and landed on the ground. "As soon as I came out of the elevator, I saw a big green guy running around in the laboratory. Instead of hurting ordinary people, he fought with several super soldiers." Banner. Rory put his hands together to form a huge golden sword, and chopped it down with force. The golden giant sword was so huge that it pierced through the floor above his head, leaving a sword mark, and then hit Banner's back hard. Page 46. Boom. Banner's huge body was chopped off by a sword and flew out of the laboratory building. A trace of green blood spilled out and just happened to splash on Ross, who was crawling out behind Rory. Roar. Dr. Banner got up and stood outside the laboratory building, yelling, but he showed no intention of coming in. Rory walked out of the laboratory building carrying a giant sword, and was stunned when he saw the situation outside. Familiar faces appeared in front of Rory one after another. Everyone was wearing the Avengers combat uniform, and it was obvious that they came prepared. Armored vehicles and tanks drove over from the other side of the base, surrounding the superheroes, and the soldiers stood ready with guns raised. 2 helicopters were hovering in the sky, and the machine guns they mounted were also aimed at the new Avengers. "Rory, surrender. I'm going to kick you in the face." They started fighting as soon as they had a disagreement. After Rory cursed, Bruce Banner rushed up first, and Rory chopped him down with the sword in his hand without mercy. Banner knew how powerful this golden giant sword was and did not dare to resist it head-on. When he raised his sword to chop again, Captain Marvel quickly approached and released energy bombs with both hands at the same time, knocking Rory back 2 steps. As soon as the fight started, the soldier on the other side pulled the trigger without hesitation. Guns and cannons roared, and the machine guns on the helicopters fired wildly. The new Avengers immediately scattered and fought on their own. Spider-Man Peter Parker wants to use web shooters to tie up these soldiers and control them without hurting them. Jessica Jones and Luke Cage in the Defenders are dealing crazy damage to armored vehicles and tanks. The War Machine suddenly flew over from a distance, raised its hand and broke the balance fan blades at the tail of the two helicopters, forcing the helicopters to make an emergency landing. The Avengers just wanted to take Rory away, so they had no intention of harming these ordinary soldiers. Chapter 60, Rory and the Avengers' Second Battle. Buzz thump thump thump. 17 Gatling guns were lined up in a row, and the dense bullets formed a big net and rushed towards the Avengers madly. The appearance of 17 super soldiers immediately brought tremendous pressure to the Avengers. Peter Parker. Upon hearing this, Peter Parker immediately shot out a spider silk to wrap around the War Machine in the sky, and then swung behind the 17 super soldiers. Call out. The thread just wrapped around one of the men's wrists, but the web was broken free the next second and a punch hit Peter Parker in the face. Ouch, my nose. Members of the Defenders rushed over to help. 17 super soldiers threw away their Gatling guns that had run out of ammunition and rushed forward. After only one round, the 4-member Defenders were pinned to the ground and beaten. Damn it! They are not ordinary people, come and help. Black Panther and Winter Soldier rushed to the scene and joined the battle, but they were still unable to completely suppress the 17 super soldiers. They are not just enhanced humans, but also military soldiers who have received rigorous military training. Although they may not be stronger than the Avengers individually, they can't stand up to their numbers. Ordinary superheroes really can't withstand a barrage of punches from them. The other side. Rory wielded a giant sword and chased Captain Marvel and Hulk, slashing them wildly. The Hulk threw a jeep, which was cut in half by Rory with a sword. The two jeeps slid several meters on the concrete ground, sparks ignited the spilled gasoline, and there was a boom explosion behind Rory. Rory's shadow swayed gently on the ground under the firelight. Captain Marvel flew over with another energy bomb. Rory instantly formed a shield to block it, then shrunk the shield and gathered the excess energy into his other hand to form a one-handed sword. While resisting Captain Marvel's attack, he chased after Banner. It is true that Banner is thick-skinned and tough, but it depends on who he is compared with. Weapons transformed from cosmic energy are not just sharp. Cutting ordinary metal is as easy as cutting tofu. If you want to fight against them, you must have equal energy. Captain Marvel flew in the air and attacked, and Rory was harassed and spinning around in circles. Roar! Hulk Banner took advantage of Rory's back to him and rushed over violently. Just when the Hulk was about to hit Rory, the wall of the laboratory building suddenly exploded, and another Hulk suddenly rushed out amid the flying bricks. He hugged the Hulk Bruce Banner, and the two giants rolled on the ground for a few times. After getting up, they immediately wrestled with each other. Everyone was shocked when they saw this scene, including Rory himself. Red Hulk and Hulk Banner had no defense at all, and exchanged damage with punches. The Red Hulk is Ross. Rory was the first one to come out of the underground laboratory just now. Ross was afraid that the enhanced serum would be damaged, so he took the serum and climbed up the elevator shaft. As a result, the bottle containing the serum was accidentally broken, and the fragments cut Ross's arm, which happened to be stained with the Hulk's blood. The serum mixed with the green blood and merged into the wound on Ross's arm. Thus, the Red Hulk was born. The two giants fought with each other, making a loud bang, and the others were held back by 17 super soldiers. Rory chuckled and rushed towards Captain Marvel again, swinging his sword. The sword was so fast and fierce that Carol was hit on the forehead before she could react. Bang! History repeated itself, and Carol was knocked to the ground once again. A deep hole was smashed into the solid concrete floor. As Rory continued to hit it hard, cracks began to appear on the solid concrete floor and extended in all directions. Come on, get up! Rory laughed and waved his sword. Carol was knocked dizzy and could only barely resist the blinding golden light that burst out from her body. Boom! A 7-color rainbow beam of light descended from the sky, and a storm axe flew out from the beam of light, chopping Rory, who was chopping people, and sending him flying more than 10 meters away. Oh, sorry, I'm a little late because of something. Are you all okay? The macho Thor, the god of thunder, walked out of the light column of the rainbow bridge with the stone man Korg. He thought he was funny, but in fact no one paid any attention to him because everyone was busy. Red Hulk raised a plane and knocked the Hulk away. The angry Hulk picked up a tank and threw it at Red Hulk, but it didn't hit Red Hulk, but instead crushed several ordinary soldiers. Thor asked in amazement, "Hey, is he Banner's cousin?" Carol rubbed his forehead and stood up, pointing at Rory and said, "That person is Rory." Thor turned his head to look at Rory, and Rory was also looking at Thor. Storm Axe returned to Thor's hand, and he asked with a smile, "Do you want to come with me now, or do you want me to beat you up and take you away later?" Thor is the most powerful Avenger. The Stormbreaker in his hand can even split the energy attack of the 6 gems and then hit Thanos hard. Later, he even chopped off Thanos' head. Currently on the field, the Stormbreaker in Thor's hand is the only weapon that can pose a threat to Rory. But how could Rory admit defeat? He had come all the way here alone and had never been afraid. He sneered and said, "Perhaps I can keep you here." Thor suppressed the smile on his face, weighed the storm axe in his hand, leaped high with his signature move, and then chopped towards Rory with great force. Boom! The axe hit the ground with an empty axe, creating a deep hole. Then it adjusted its direction and quickly swept towards Rory. Clang! The giant sword and storm axe in Rory's hands collided. Then the two of them exchanged more than 10 moves in a row. The more they fought, the more surprised Thor was that this kid who came out of nowhere could actually fight on equal terms with him. The longer it drags on, the more disadvantageous it will be for the Avengers. More and more soldiers came to support, and artillery and tanks gathered on the periphery, with all guns pointed at the battlefield. 2 fighter planes carrying bombs flew across the sky, and they could open fire at any time. Swish! Suddenly a portal lit up, and Doctor Strange, who had restored his magic power, floated out from it. As soon as he came out, he used the form of Isaac, clone technique, and dozens of clones lined up above Rory's head, and dozens of rune whips were swung towards Rory. He used the same move against Thanos. Rory was tied up and couldn't move. "Thor! Hurry!" Strange yelled. Thor held the axe in both hands and chopped at Rory. The axe blade flashed with cold light and made a sound of cutting through the air, trying to cut Rory in two. Rory was unable to break free from the control of the rune whip for a moment. His eyes widened as he mobilized all the cosmic energy in his body. Swish! The giant sword in his hand disappeared, and the golden cosmic energy turned into a shining golden armor that wrapped Rory. The armor formed by the golden light looked extremely dazzling at night, and the surrounding space was illuminated a little. The storm axe chopped on the golden armor with a clang. The blue light of lightning and the golden cosmic energy intertwined together, and a burst of light waves suddenly erupted. Thor was flung away, and Strange, who was pulling the rune whip, staggered. Lowry, who had temporarily regained some mobility, conjured 2 daggers in his hands, and with a flip of his hand, he cut off all the rune whips tied to his body. Hee. Rory smiled and then immediately closed his mouth. He wanted to say, "You should chop off my head," but thought better of it. Maybe some things really can't be said. The great sword in his hand appeared again, and with one sword he chopped the stunned Thor away. Page 47. Thor, flying backwards, just bumped into Strange's real body, and all the clones in the sky disappeared instantly. Boom! Boom! The outer troops had already formed a siege and were gradually advancing, with the sound of gunfire and artillery fire continuing. Suddenly, a figure flew past Rory. Rory, who was nervous, subconsciously swung the giant sword in his hand, directly splitting the Black Shadow into 2. Puff! The second-generation Black Widow Yelena was thrown by a super soldier, but unexpectedly she hit Rory's blade, twitched a few times, and her life instantly disappeared. Rory was stunned when he saw this. He thought it was a weapon thrown by someone, but he didn't expect it was a person. Chapter 61, Destiny Must Be in Your Own Hands. Rory didn't take the second-generation Black Widow who was cut into 2 pieces seriously. He picked up the giant sword and pursued Thor. Dang! The stone man Korg blocked the attack with the stick in his hand, and then was split in half. Rory knocked Korg down with a back elbow, causing a pile of pebbles to fly out. He was about to smash the stone man Korg with his next sword, but was blocked by the storm axe. Thor, Captain Marvel Carol, and Doctor Strange stood opposite Rory. Strange glanced at the men who were fighting with the 17 super soldiers and said, "Rory, make them stop. You've lost." Swish! With a shield in one hand and a long sword in the other, Rory took a fighting stance. Life is never about winning or losing. No one can control my fate. No one. Rory turned around, pointed his sword, and shouted, "Kill them all. Don't leave any alive." Although he had a one-night stand with Jessica Jones, any mercy in the face of opposition would be irresponsible to his own life. Roar! 17 super soldiers burst out with their strongest fighting power. 2 of them fought with Black Panther, 2 entangled Spider-Man, 1 dealt with the Winter Soldier, and all the remaining super soldiers launched a crazy attack on the 4 members of the Defenders Alliance. Daredevil used his double rolls to block the attack in front of him, and a dagger suddenly appeared from the side, cutting Daredevil's ribs, and then he was stabbed in the lower abdomen and arm. The injured Daredevil could no longer withstand the attack of the super soldier. In the blink of an eye, he was stabbed several times and fell to the ground, bleeding a pool of blood. Matt. Danny Rand, the Iron Fist, gathered his strength and punched the super soldier who was rushing towards Jessica Jones. He was about to save Daredevil, but the next second he was surrounded by 3 super soldiers and pinned to the ground and beaten. Click. The right hand that released the energy punch was stepped on and bent backwards. When the super soldier was about to insert the tactical dagger into Danny Rand's heart, Luke Cage, who was invulnerable to swords and guns, rushed over with his body, knocked the super soldier away and helped Danny Rand up. As a result, more super soldiers rushed up, grabbed Luke Cage's hands and feet, dragged Luke Cage in front of the tank, and pressed him under the tank tracks. Luke Cage struggled and roared, but he couldn't move the heavy tank that was pressing on him. The next target is Black Panther and Winter Soldier. If this continues, all the superheroes will die here. Strange immediately raised his hands and drew a portal, sending away the 4 defenders, Black Panther and Winter Soldier. Without a target, the 17 super soldiers turned to look at Spider-Man Peter Parker. Oh, buy it? A spider silk shot out and immediately moved away from these super soldiers. When he was halfway through the swing, a portal appeared in front of him, and the next second Spider-Man left the battlefield. Rory swung the golden sword in his hand and said, "Go and kill the Hulk for me too." 17 super soldiers rushed towards the Hulk Bruce Banner like a tide. He was already evenly matched with Red Hulk, and now a group of super soldiers came, and Banner was completely unable to resist. Captain Marvel Carol wanted to help, but Rory ran all over the ground to catch up with her. Don't even think about it. The golden light shield blocked Captain Marvel's energy bomb, and the sword in his hand stabbed directly at the Hulk. Since Rory couldn't do anything about the ones flying in the sky, he decided to deal with the ones running on the ground. Swish, a portal appeared, and Bruce Banner was also sent away by Strange. Roar. Red Hulk opened his arms and roared to the sky. The others didn't know who the Red Hulk was, but Rory knew. The Hulk has become Ross's obsession, and today he finally won. Rory turned and looked at the 3 people opposite him. Thor plus Doctor Strange plus Captain Marvel vs Rory plus Red Hulk plus 17 super soldiers. Shoot that juggler down. At Rory's command, all the super soldiers drew their guns and aimed at Strange at the same time. Thor and Captain Marvel can withstand missiles with their physical bodies, but Strange can't. The mage's physical body is not much different from that of an ordinary person, and he will die if he is shot. Frightened, Strange immediately activated his energy shield. Several super soldiers went to pick up Gatling guns, ready to let Strange taste the most insane firepower coverage in modern times. Buzz 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 as the 2 support helicopters came over, they crazily fired at Strange and Captain Marvel flying in the sky, and the ground anti-aircraft guns took aim and fired continuously. Fortunately, Captain Marvel protected Strange from behind, otherwise Strange would have been blown to pieces. An angry Thor waved his storm axe, trying to destroy the planes in the sky and the group of super soldiers on the ground. Rory snorted coldly, and immediately rushed forward with his light shield and lightsaber. The shield blocked the battle axe, and he struck back with the sword. Clang. Rory finally understood Steve Rogers' happiness. It's great to have a shield. Just as Rory and Thor were in the middle of a fierce battle, Nick Fury's urgent voice suddenly came from the communicator: "Retreat immediately, stop fighting, now." But. No buts. We cannot harm civilians, let alone soldiers. Retreat. This is an order. Rory has a new helper, and the other Avengers have withdrawn from the battlefield one after another. The remaining 3 giants find it difficult to deal with Rory. If you don't want to hurt others, you can only choose to retreat. Captain Marvel looked at Strange and said, "There's no chance. Let's retreat." Although Strange was unwilling, he could only nod helplessly. A portal appeared behind him and he disappeared in an instant. Carol turned into a golden light and rushed into the sky. Thor followed closely behind her, raised Storm Rage and flew away. A sudden war came to an end. The military base has been reduced to ruins, and almost all the damage came from the 2 giants. Red Hulk walked up to Rory with rumbling steps, staring at him without saying a word. Rory put away the cosmic energy weapon and asked, "Can't change back?" Red Hulk exhaled a wave of heat and nodded. Although the military base laboratory building was in ruins, it did not cause too serious impact on the underground laboratory. Rory returns to the underground lab with Ross, who has transformed into the Red Hulk. After drawing some blood, it was discovered that Red Hulk's blood was golden, and like the Hulk, his blood contained gamma rays. Logically speaking, Ross should have been transformed into the Red Hulk by the Big Boss Samuel Stern using gamma rays. Could it be that Ross has been transformed by the Big Boss? But when he thought about it carefully, he found that the timeline obviously didn't match, and Rory himself was a little confused. After a series of tests and data analysis, Rory walked up to Ross, who was squatting on the ground, and asked, "Have you ever seen a man named Samuel Stern before?" Ross is feeling very uncomfortable now. The space in the underground laboratory is not high enough. He can't stand up and can only squat, and he can't even raise his head. Hearing Rory's question, Ross immediately shook his head. No. Luo just asked casually and continued, I don't know why you became like this. I can give you an injection of an inhibitor to suppress the mutated gene in your body. Maybe you can restore it to your original state, but there are certain risks. It's up to you to decide. The inhibitor is a serum drug extracted by Luo from mice. The mouse did not gain any strength enhancement after being injected with Thanos serum, but its genes can suppress the genes of other organisms, so it can be made into an inhibitor. Ross thought for a moment and then hummed, okay, go ahead. Chapter 62, The Avengers in Bulk. Now is the critical period for Ross's presidential campaign. He certainly cannot run for president as Red Hulk. After hesitating for a long time, Ross finally chose power. There are many people with superpowers, but there is only one president. Fortunately, no one knows that Red Hulk is Ross. Luo took out the inhibitor and put it into the vibranium needle gun, then chose a relatively weak skin location and injected it into Ross's body. As soon as the medicine entered his body, Ross felt sore and numb all over his body. The red color of his skin began to gradually disappear, and finally slowly returned to its original skin color. The huge body began to shrink, its bones shed and its muscles atrophied, and after a few seconds it returned to human form. I only have a white coat here, you can wear it first. After returning to human form, Ross looked unusually tired. He put on the white coat Rory handed him and asked, will there be sudden transformations in the future? Is there any way for me to actively control the transformation? Luo shook his head. I don't understand. You need to figure this out on your own. If you really can't figure it out, you can ask Bruce Banner. There's still an inhibitor left here. Take it with you. If anything goes wrong, you can give yourself an injection at any time. Thank you. The power in the laboratory has been restored, and Rory and Ross take the elevator back to the ground. At this time, military troops have arrived and are cleaning up the battlefield. Page 48. We can't just let this go. Attacking a military base is a serious crime, even for a superhero, Ross said angrily. Rory warned, don't target all the Avengers at once. You can start with a few weaker ones. While speaking, he waved to a place not far away, and 17 super soldiers immediately lined up and walked over. Snapped. Hello, sir. Luo nodded and said, Number 4 and Number 7, you two will follow Mr. Ross back and be responsible for protecting his safety. Yes, sir. The 17 super soldiers obeyed Rory's orders, and Ross on the side couldn't help but frown slightly. Super soldiers admire the strong. These people did not have a clear understanding of Luo's strength before, but after today they realized how strong Luo was. It was already difficult for the 17 of them to deal with a few ordinary superheroes, but Rory was able to challenge the top Avengers alone. Their combat performance was completely on a different level. Rory then said to Ross, the rest of them can stay here for now. We still have some experiments that require their cooperation. Remember to notify me when you capture the Avengers. I will bring people over to help. Ross nodded. Yes, it would be best if we could strengthen more super soldiers so that we won't be overwhelmed when facing the Avengers next time. Luo just smiled and said nothing. The Avengers launched an attack this time and destroyed a military base, which is no different from terrorists and is even a provocative act against the authorities. Next, the Avengers will definitely be targeted by the authorities and even arrested. The special car that was picking up Ross drove over. Before leaving, Ross suddenly turned around and said, Rory, I want to give the super soldier squad a name. What do you think of the name Night Legion? It's your right. Luo replied lightly. The Knights? Who is the king? At the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, everyone who had just returned from the military base was now arguing. The first person to open fire was War Machine Rod, who should have been injured and hospitalized, and had to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. Not only was he not disabled, but he also recovered quickly and was even able to continue to control the war machine. Thor, I don't have a problem with you, but I think you should take at least half the responsibility for this operation. Thor hated being blamed the most, so he immediately retorted, you guys couldn't win, not me. If you want to be held responsible, I think you should look for the reasons within yourselves. But it was you who was late. You can't deny that. Iron Fist Danny Rand, his broken arm in a cast, glared and shouted, didn't anyone figure out the enemy's strength before the operation? 17 super soldiers, and now Matt is dead. Someone must be held accountable for this. Among the 4 members of the Defenders, only Jessica Jones is slightly better, and the rest are in a mess. Especially Luke Cage, if there was no portal to help him leave, he might still be crushed by the tank. Don't make excuses for your weakness. It will make you look like a wimp. Peter Parker echoed, I felt like I was facing 17 captains. They were faster and more ruthless. Mr. Fury also asked us not to hurt the soldiers, which was really hard to do. That's right, Nick Fury should bear the main responsibility. Some idiot must be held responsible for the failure of this operation. I don't want to lose my life during the next operation. Yelena is dead. Let's think about how to explain this to Clint Barton. Dr. Banner said weakly. And that Red Hulk, he tied down Dr. Banner and caused us to lose a lot of combat power. Otherwise, we might still have a chance. Without Hawkeye Barton, the lucky guy, it is really difficult to win the team battle. The atmosphere in the meeting room was depressing. Everyone was looking for excuses for the failure of the operation. Moreover, 2 superheroes were killed in one go, which was a huge loss. Nick Fury kept a dark face and didn't say a word the whole time, and Doctor Strange sighed heavily. Maria Hill whispered, this scene reminds me of when the Avengers were first formed, but back then we had Captain and Tony, who could lead others onto the right path. Nick Fury certainly knows this. Without a reliable person to lead the team, there will be a lot of trouble within the team. Strange said to Nick Fury, we need to be more fully prepared. Everyone must unite. It would be best to call more people to deal with the super soldiers who helped Rory. I believe we can defeat Rory next time. Thor has killed Thanos before, so of course he has the confidence to defeat Rory. He just underestimated his enemy today. After 1 hour, the federal government issued a restriction order on SHIELD agents and all members of the new Avengers, prohibiting them from leaving the country and using superpowers, and issued a time-limited surrender notice to many people, including the Winter Soldier. Not only did the operation fail, but now he has become a supervised person and a wanted criminal. No one can accept such an outcome. After the meeting, Thor found Strange and asked, Master Strange, I want to know why we have to deal with that man named Rory. Can't we also absorb him into the Avengers? Strange shook his head, impossible, he is the destroyer, just like Ragnarok in Asgard. As long as Rory is alive, he is Ragnarok on Earth. The Ragnarok of Asgard was still vivid in Thor's mind. The fire giant Surtur defeated his sister Hela and also destroyed the Asgardians' Asgard. Thor didn't know what basis Strange had for judging that Rory would destroy the world, and he was too lazy to dwell on such an issue. Thor took the stone man Korg out of the building and walked to the open space. He raised the Stormbreaker high and a colorful beam of light fell down in an instant. Chapter 63 It's easiest to get words from a good kid. A 7-colored rainbow bridge appears in the small town of Asgard in Norway. Just after walking out of the rainbow bridge, Thor and Korg looked at the dilapidated town of Asgard with a confused look on their faces. It seemed that this place had also experienced a war. What's happening here? Korg spread his hands and said, perhaps it was that person's revenge? Valkyrie, the Valkyrie who had just rescued someone from the rubble, came over after seeing the rainbow bridge. Thor, the people of Asgard need you. It's the God Slayer. Thor knew about the God Butcher before he came back, but he didn't expect that the other party would come so quickly and attack Asgard while he was dealing with Rory. Luckily, a friend helped me last night. Maybe you should meet her. When a military base enters the post-war reconstruction phase, the budget must be evaluated first, and then the Pentagon and the White House must sign off. Construction can only begin after obtaining the money. Although Luo Rui's underground laboratory did not suffer any damage, the reconstruction upstairs would definitely make it impossible to continue experiments underground. And the test will be stopped for a long time. At night, Luo Rui stood in the back garden of his residence with his eyes closed, feeling the cosmic energy in his body. When Thor's Stormbreaker came down, Rory used cosmic energy to transform into armor in a hurry to block the fatal blow. After meditating for a moment, Luo Rui released the cosmic energy gathered in his hands in reverse. The golden light began to flow upward along his arms, wrapping his arms, shoulders, then his body, and finally flowing to the soles of his feet. A golden armor was put on Luo Rui's body. From a distance, it looks like Gold Saint? Isn't it said that programmed cosmic energy cannot be changed? Why can I? Luo Rui was very curious, but no one could answer this question for him. While controlling the armor, Luo Rui gathered energy in his hands again to create a weapon. After a few breaths, Luo Rui could only conjure up a short sword of normal length. This was the limit of what he could do at the moment, or the limit of his energy. Luo Rui frowned and fell into thought. The energy of the universe is materialized through his body, but the amount of energy used does not depend on Luo Rui himself, but on the fact that the conversion speed of the universe energy cannot keep up. As long as he increases the speed of absorbing cosmic energy, Luo Rui can infinitely increase the length of his magical weapon, and even split the earth in half with one sword. The problem was that he didn't know how to increase the speed of absorbing cosmic energy. The next day, Rory arrived at Ingram Street in Queens in a military vehicle. "Sir, we are here. Wait for me in the car." After getting off the car, Rory checked the address and then walked into the apartment door. Ding dong. The door opened with a click and a charming woman appeared behind it. Who are you? Rory smiled kindly and asked, hello, is this the Parker residence? Aunt May nodded doubtfully. You must be Aunt May, right? My name is Rory, and I'm Peter Parker's good friend. I happen to be passing by here today, so I came to visit Peter Parker. I wonder if it's convenient for you. Oh, of course, please come in. After inviting Rory into the house, Aunt May asked, coffee or tea? Thank you, a glass of water would be nice. Aunt May came over with a glass of purified water and handed it to Rory. Then she sat opposite Rory and asked. Rory, right? How did you and Peter meet? Aunt May was not without guard at all, and she started testing me as soon as she sat down. Rory took a sip of purified water, put down the glass and said, I worked with him for a while, but I was in charge of logistics. Oh really? Peter rarely talks to me about his friends. It's just like that at his age, you know. Aunt May said half-jokingly. After chatting for about half an hour, the naughty Parker came home from the apartment building after school. Just as he reached the door of his house, Peter Parker's hair stood on end and his spider sense immediately gave a strong danger signal. Snapped. Peter Parker immediately strapped the web shooter to his wrist, then took out his key and carefully opened the apartment door. Hi Peter, your friends are here to see you. Aunt May and Rory were chatting happily. Peter came in and waved with a smile. Rory had his back to the door, and when Peter Parker approached, he discovered that it was Rory sitting on the sofa. His whole body stiffened and his heartbeat instantly increased to a rapid speed. Page 49. He finally understood why he had such a strong sense of crisis. Hi Peter Parker, we meet again. Ahem. Hi sir. May I ask who you are? Anyone could see that Peter Parker was nervous. He even wanted to pretend that he didn't know him and get away with it. Aunt May gradually put away her smile after seeing Peter Parker's reaction. The relationship between the two seemed not as good as she imagined. In Peter Parker's eyes, Rory's smile was like the bloody mouth of a dragon, and he didn't feel friendly at all. We met at a military base in the suburbs yesterday, but you don't recognize me today? I'm sorry, sir. I don't know what you are talking about. If you have nothing else, please come in. Rory glanced at Aunt May at this time, and Peter Parker immediately stood in front of Aunt May. Sir, I think it's time for you to leave. Rory waved his hand. Don't be nervous, I just want to talk to you. If I came here with hostility, you wouldn't be standing here peacefully now. Let's talk alone. What Peter Parker feared most was that Rory would threaten him with Aunt May. Now, when he heard that Rory agreed to let Aunt May go, Peter Parker immediately turned around and gave Aunt May a look. Although Aunt May was worried, she knew that she would only be a burden if she stayed, so she immediately picked up her keys and coat and left the apartment. Sit down. Rory pointed to the sofa and invited Peter Parker to sit down and chat. Peter Parker sat opposite Rory with his nerves tense, not daring to let his guard down for a moment. This is the deterrent power brought by powerful strength. Peter, I know you're a good kid, so I don't want you to get involved in these messy things. This is my advice to you. Peter Parker didn't want to communicate too much with Rory, but his mouth worked faster than his brain. Sir, I think you should talk to Dr. Strange instead of coming to me. Peter Parker didn't believe what Rory said at all, because Rory killed Captain America and Falcon in front of him. Rory smiled slightly. Everyone has their own standpoint. It has nothing to do with good or bad. You are still young. I don't want you to be taken advantage of and lose your life. Otherwise, who will take care of your Aunt May? But Mr. Strange said you are the destroyer and you will destroy the world. Peter Parker knew that he shouldn't talk nonsense, but he couldn't help but say whatever he thought. Rory was stunned for a moment when he heard this, then he chuckled and said, whatever he says is true. Only a fool would believe it. Ancient One also said this. It's not that Rory doesn't believe it, but Rory thinks the future is uncertain. Otherwise, why would the history of 1970 change? The premise of predicting the future is that history will not change. The current situation is obviously a wrong prediction by Strange. Okay, let's stop here. Those superheroes are now wanted criminals by the federal government. You'd better not have any close contact with them. If you're bored, just be your good neighbor Spider-Man on the block. If there's a next time, I won't hold back on you. Rory came here today just to know the Avengers' plan, but before he even started asking questions, Peter Parker revealed everything himself. If the Avengers determine that he will destroy the world, there will definitely be further actions against him. He then left Queens in a military vehicle. Next it will be Rory's time to strike back. Chapter 64, even if the exterior is strong, there is a weak interior. Hell's Kitchen. There are only 3 left of the 4-member defenders. Daredevil Matt Murdock is dead, Iron Fist Danny Rand is seriously injured, and the survivors have been classified as wanted criminals by the federal government, and a public announcement has been issued ordering them to surrender voluntarily. Jessica Jones, Danny Rand Iron Fist, and Luke Cage gathered together to discuss the problems they will face next. Luke Cage said firmly, "We should avenge Matt. We can't just quit like this." "Revenge? How? Are you going to seek revenge from the Federation or the military? Or do you want to go after that guy named Rory? Even the most powerful Avengers combined couldn't do anything to him, so there's no way we can be his opponent. Nick Fury has a lot of agents under him, and he has the support of the Security Council and the Avengers behind him. There may not be a conflict, but the days of SHIELD and the Avengers will definitely not be easy. Did Matt die in vain? We can't just do nothing." "Of course not, but there's nothing we can do with just a few of us. Let's wait for news from SHIELD and the Avengers. Danny Rand's arm will take some time to recover, and no matter what they want to do, they have to heal the injury first." Jessica Jones walked to the restaurant bar and opened a bottle of whiskey to drown her sorrows. Iron Fist Danny Rand and Luke Cage walked out of the restaurant together and separated at the intersection. Luke Cage was on his way back to his apartment when he noticed something was wrong as soon as he crossed a street. It was quiet, so quiet on the street that it was eerie. "I couldn't help but quicken my pace." After taking a few steps, Luke Cage suddenly stopped. The way ahead was blocked by 2 soldiers in combat uniforms. He had seen these 2 people before. They were the super soldiers he had fought against during the attack on the military base last night. Luke Cage looked around and found that people were blocking his way from all sides, surrounding him. Luke Cage, who suffered a great loss yesterday, did not dare to fight head-on. The next second, he accelerated and rushed forward, trying to quickly break through the encirclement and escape from here. Bang! He knocked back a super soldier with 1 punch and continued to run forward without caring about the other one. Just when he thought he had successfully escaped, a golden light suddenly appeared on the dark street. Boom! A golden giant sword over 2.5 meters long appeared out of thin air and slammed Luke Cage back. Luke Cage took 3 seconds to break out of the encirclement, then 1 second to fly back the same way, and fell to the ground with a thump. 5 or 6 super soldiers immediately surrounded him and pinned Luke Cage down. It's true that Luke Cage is an invulnerable superpowered person, and it's also true that he is very strong, and even 100 ordinary people cannot hurt him, but when facing super soldiers of the same level, Luke Cage loses all his advantages. Rory put away the energy sword and walked out of the shadows. He glanced at Luke Cage calmly and said, "Tie him up and take him away." If it weren't for Thor and Captain Marvel, Rory could even lead a group of super soldiers to fight the Avengers head-on, but now that Thor and Captain Marvel Carol are back, Rory chose the safer approach of defeating them one by one. The super soldier tied Luke Cage up like a mummy with a restraint belt, and then put on heavy metal handcuffs and shackles. Several military vehicles drove over, loaded Luke Cage, and drove away. Danny Rand, who had not walked far, ran over immediately after hearing the noise and witnessed the whole process of Luke Cage being captured. Unfortunately, his arm was broken and he could not use the Iron Fist. Even if he could use it, he would end up giving himself away. After the military vehicle left, Danny Rand immediately returned to the restaurant and told Jessica Jones that Luke Cage had been captured. "I'm going to find SHIELD and ask them to rescue Luke Cage." Several military vehicles returned to the military base and drove directly into a huge warehouse. "Hang up." The chains hooked Luke Cage's hands and hung him in the air. Luke Cage has an invulnerable body and is not worried about what Rory will do to him. He neither struggles nor shouts. Rory walked up to Luke Cage and asked, "How did you get your superpowers?" "He, do you think I would tell you?" Of the 4 defenders, Rory is currently only interested in Luke Cage. Danny Rand's abilities as Iron Fist come from training, Daredevil's abilities are enhanced senses and radiation perception, and Jessica Jones's blood has been studied long ago, so Luke Cage became Rory's first target. Rory asked curiously, "Are you really that hard-mouthed?" "You'll know if you try it." Luke Cage showed disdain. Rory nodded, "Let's give it a try." Luke Cage didn't understand what Rory meant at first, until he saw Rory take a tightening device and put it in his mouth. Rory turned the wrench, and Luke Cage's mouth was stretched wider and wider. "I heard your skin is invulnerable and as hard as iron, so your tongue should be soft, right? If even your tongue is hard, then you are too." Then he took the vibranium syringe from the super soldier and stabbed it into Luke Cage's mouth without hesitation. "Ouch. Draw a large tube of blood and put it into the blood bottle." Then, looking at Luke Cage, who was shaking in pain, he asked, "What if you get sick and need surgery? Will you die from the pain?" Rory shrugged and smiled, "Maybe I can do some virus experiments on you, like pouring an organ-corroding agent into your mouth, or get some cancer cells." Lele. Luke Cage shook his head frantically, his mouth was stretched so wide that he couldn't utter complete words, but Rory still heard that Luke Cage meant to say that he was a devil. No, 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 you were the ones who attacked the military base first. You are the terrorists on the run now. Luke Cage opened his mouth and said reluctantly, it's SHIELD. It has nothing to do with me. Oh. Then are you willing to stand up and expose the illegal actions of SHIELD? Luke Cage was silent. Rory smiled slightly, I'll give you one night to think about it. If you agree, I'll let you go. In fact, I hope you don't agree, so that I have a reasonable reason to send you to the laboratory. After saying that, Rory turned and left, leaving 2 super soldiers here to guard Luke Cage. After returning to his residence, Rory received a call from Secretary of State Ross. Rory, Bucky the Winter Soldier has been found. Where? Rory did not forget his promise. He said he would send Bucky down to reunite with Steve, so he must send him down. I went to Wakanda last night with Chatra, the Black Panther. Wakanda is a closed little world with advanced technological power that surpasses the world. It owns the only vibranium mine on Earth and can single-handedly resist Thanos' vanguard army. Rory frowned and asked, is there any way to get him back? I will try to use diplomatic means to put pressure on Wakanda. As for whether Wakanda will release them, I cannot guarantee it. Rory smiled coldly in his heart. The revenge has just begun. No one can escape. Chapter 65. Chapter 65 Scientific research is the accidental discovery of something you have never seen before. The next morning, after washing up and having breakfast, he took a few super soldiers to the warehouse where he was last night. Luke Cage was hanging and still had a expander in his mouth. So what have you thought of? Luke Cage looked up at Rory and neither nodded nor shook his head. Rory chuckled and waved his hand, saying, notify the laboratory building to stop work for the day. I need to use the lab. 2 super soldiers put Luke Cage down and followed Rory to the underground laboratory. After placing Luke Cage on the lab table and securing him, Rory came over with a few syringes and introduced, I have HIV, lymphoma cells, motor neuron test viruses, and blood viruses. I wonder if your iron body can handle them. Biological experiments are always inseparable from viruses. For example, the super soldier serum is a genetically enhanced serum that Rory extracted after using cancer cells to kill Steve's original cells. Virus cultivation is not difficult. Most biological and environmental protection laboratories around the world have departments for storing and cultivating viruses. Luke Cage's eyes were filled with fear, but he still refused to let go and just struggled. Just as the needle was placed in his mouth and about to pierce the flesh, Luke Cage finally let go. I agree. I agree. Oh, I thought you were such a tough guy. Rory retracted the needle with a look of disappointment. He turned to the super soldier and said, take it back and record a video incriminating SHIELD, give the evidence to Ross, and ask him to issue a wanted order for Captain Marvel Carol. After the super soldier took Luke Cage away, Rory sat at the lab table to study the blood sample he had drawn last night. Luke Cage's superpowers are the result of a biochemical experiment mutation, which can be classified as a radiation gene mutation type enhancement. The upper limit of this type of enhancement is very low. Rory will definitely not use it himself, but he can use it in super soldier experiments. Purify the radiation virus, integrate it into the genetic serum that cracks the genetic code, and rewrite the genetic sequence. Zhizzy. Rory grabbed the little white mouse that was chewing on a nut. Every time he got a new blood sample, Rory would conduct an experiment with the little white mouse's serum. From the beginning of serum research to the present, all serums have been developed with the purpose of enhancing the genetic strength of the body, except for mice. Therefore, Rory will use mouse serum as the standard for genetic strength testing. The little white mouse was eating happily, but when it was caught and given a shot, it immediately became unhappy and started squeaking and waving its claws. After the blood was drawn and the mouse was put down, it ran away without a trace. After the RNA test was completed, Rory sat in front of the electron microscope and used a cell needle to inject the mouse's genes into Luke Cage's cells, and then injected Luke Cage's genes into the mouse's cells. The results obtained by swapping kernels are completely different. The white mouse's genetic level is higher than Luke Cage's. After Luke Cage's cells were injected with the white mouse's genes, they immediately began to expand and divide, showing a significant increase in strength. In contrast, the mouse cells injected with Luke Cage's genes wilted within a few seconds and then lost their vitality. Oh my gosh! After injecting Thanos' gene, the genetic similarity between the mouse and Rory was as high as 84%, which to a certain extent represents Rory's genetic strength. A few minutes after injecting Luke Cage's cells, a new type of blood cell was differentiated. This discovery surprised Rory a little. Radiation virus enhanced serum? Want to try it? If the enhancement methods are classified, in Rory's mind, high-dimensional gene enhancement, self-gene enhancement, radiation virus enhancement, biological gene fusion. Rory used the Eternals genes to replace his own genes, while Captain America Steve and Captain Marvel Carol were classified as having their own genetic enhancements. The conditions in Dr. Erkin's era were limited, and he could not make a more powerful serum, otherwise Steve might have been more powerful. Spider-Man, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and the Hulk are all related to radiation viruses, which can be biochemical agents, viruses contaminated with radiation, or rays. Because of external pressure, their own genes mutate, which Rory calls radiation virus enhancement. As for the last type of enhancement through gene fusion, the most typical one is Dr. Lizard. In Luo Rui's opinion, the fusion of genes from different species is the lowest behavior, which Luo Rui also calls a deformer. Biologists hate deformers, which are neither human nor ghost, and completely violate the basic concepts of biology. Now that he had accidentally developed the radiation virus enhanced serum, Luo Rui suddenly had the idea of conducting human trials. Beep. Bring the remaining 2 test volunteers here, immediately. Secretary of State Ross had previously sent 4 experimental volunteers, 2 of whom died, leaving 2 who were just suitable for this experiment. Soon the 2 volunteers were sent to the laboratory. One claimed that he was wrongly accused and wanted to get a reduced sentence by participating in the experiment. The other was a disabled soldier who was missing his right arm and wanted to participate in human experiments to leave a large sum of money for his family. Luo Rui sat in a chair and looked at the 2 people's recent medical examination reports. He said, "First of all, I want to make one thing clear. This experiment has certain risks. I don't know what the consequences will be." The disabled soldier said calmly, "It would be best if I died. My family could get more money." The criminal who claimed to be wrongly accused also said, "If I die, I hope the federal government can pardon my crimes. I don't want to die and continue to bear the accusations that I should not have committed." Luo Rui closed the medical report and smiled slightly. Sometimes, death is not the most painful thing. What is more painful is living a life worse than death. Luo Rui brought the 2 of them to the test area, drew blood, and performed the most basic cell rejection reaction test. As long as the genes are not the same, there will basically be a certain rejection reaction. Luo Rui will adjust the concentration of serum according to the intensity of the rejection reaction to achieve a balanced level. "You go first." Luo Rui pointed at the disabled soldier and said, "Take off your clothes and lie down on the lab table." Radiation virus serum enhancement does not require a bioenergy conversion chamber. During the enhancement process, the radiation will autonomously change the host's genetic mutations, destroying and repairing at the same time, and ultimately completing the genetic modification. The biggest disadvantage of this type of variation is that the results are unpredictable. The same bottle of radiation virus serum may cause different mutations when used on different people. This is why Luo Rui rarely studies radiation virus serum, because he doesn't like the feeling of leaving himself to fate. The disabled soldier stripped down to his underwear and lay tensely on the experimental bed. Although we are not afraid of death, no one can remain calm when the time comes. This is due to the human instinctive fear of the unknown. Help me secure him with the restraints. They don't have to be too tight, just enough so he can't break free. While Luo Rui was adjusting the serum, he was directing the criminal volunteers to help. After debugging the serum agent, turn on the video recorder to record the entire process of the experiment. Time, 26:10 a.m. on the 27th, N1 radiation virus serum human test, first round, subject name, Anthony, age, 1, weight, 41 pounds, heart rate, 183, serum concentration adjusted to 137%. Luo Rui introduced the experimental data in front of the video recorder, then took the radioactive virus serum to the laboratory table to start the experiment. Chapter 66, Strengthening is like taking hormones, and mutation is like opening a blind box. Squeak. Expel excess air from the needle and then stuff a towel into the disabled soldier's mouth. Bite it might hurt later. Luo Rui found the median cubital vein on the arm through the light wave radiograph, looked at the disabled soldier, and after the other nodded, Luo Rui slowly inserted the syringe into the vein. As soon as the injection started, the other party felt a very special pain. Luo Rui pressed the other person's arm to prevent the needle from rolling, and continued to inject the radioactive virus serum into his body. The pain became more and more obvious, starting from the arms and turning red until the whole body turned red and purple. Luo Rui pulled out the syringe and placed it on a tray beside him. He then pointed the handheld video camera at the subject and said, "The rejection reaction is obvious, with congestion in the subcutaneous tissue." His pupils were dilated, his breathing was irregular, and he was unconscious. Heart rate 197, heart is still working, it seems the serum fusion was successful. Hair loss symptoms are occurring. DNA is being reorganized. Something is wrong. Unknown changes are occurring. The disabled soldier developed bone spurs on his elbows, knees and shoulders, a change that Rory had not expected. According to the original speculation, the serum should retain the characteristics of the human body. This mutation is obviously not human. The next second, a longer bone spur grew out of the disabled soldier's broken arm, which was as long as his other hand. Rory quickly put the video recorder away, took out a flashlight and came to the front of the laboratory table. He pinched the table's jaw and shouted, "Stay awake, can you hear what I'm saying?" The disabled soldier's pupils contracted, but there was no other reaction. "Listen, if you can hear me, you'd better keep your sanity, otherwise you will die. When humans experience changes in their body structures, there is a certain possibility that they will become deformed. The most obvious characteristic of deformities is the loss of independent consciousness, and the original consciousness will be eroded by foreign genes. This is why many villains become completely different characters after their experiments are successful." The disabled soldier seemed to have really heard Rory's words. The bone spurs on his body slowly retracted and returned to their normal form. Then it gradually subsided. An hour later, the red skin faded, and the hair, eyebrows grew back, but they turned white. Rory suspected that the fur turned white because of the influence of the white mice. "I just don't know if his lower body has also turned white." 2 hours later, the heart rate returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. Rory frowned as he observed the data read from the machine, especially the brain waves. According to the current brainwave level, he should have woken up. When I turned around, the disabled soldier had indeed woken up. Am I not dead? I'm afraid you won't get any more money." Rory joked with a smile. After untying the restraints, they took out a pair of handcuffs and shackles and locked him up. The disabled soldier asked in confusion, "What is this for?" "It's just a precautionary measure. I'll continue to observe you for a week and conduct a psychological evaluation. Once I'm cleared, I'll release you. In order to prevent changes in the test subject's personality, necessary measures must be taken." After extracting the samples, Rory arranged for the super soldiers to send the disabled soldiers to the detention area, and then prepared to continue the next experiment. The criminal volunteer lay down on the experimental table and asked softly, "Sir, will I do the same as he did just now?" "Not necessarily. It depends on the person." According to Rory's guess, the disabled soldier lost an arm, so during the genetic modification process, the virus serum actively repaired the damaged part of the experimental subject, so bones grew back. This change is unpredictable, and the serum is more likely to be genetically modified based on the defects of the experimental subject. Page 51. Time, 26:14 p.m. on the 08th N1 radiation virus serum human test, second round, subject name, Pain, age, 2, weight, 36 pounds, heart rate, 155, serum concentration increased to 129%. Rory repeated the previous steps. This time, the experimental subject did not grow bone spurs, but his skin became abnormally hard. Unlike Luke Cage, who, although invulnerable, still had the feel of flesh and blood on his skin, the experimental subject's skin felt like touching steel, without any elasticity. The radiation virus serum is indeed a blind box draw. How it mutates depends entirely on the mood of the goddess of fate. 3 hours passed in a flash, and the second subject slowly woke up. "Sir, I seem to have gained a lot of strength." The criminal volunteers are more conscious than disabled soldiers and can even communicate normally after waking up. Rory nodded, took a scalpel and cut his arm. With a slash of hair, only a white mark was left, and the skin was intact. His mutant ability is similar to Luke Cage's, but how much different it is will have to be tested later to know. I untied the restraint belt, threw the handcuffs and leg shackles to him and said, "Put them on yourself. Go back and isolate yourself for a while. When you're all right, I'll arrange for you to go home and visit your family." Upon hearing this, the criminal volunteer immediately expressed his gratitude. "Sir, thank you very much. If my ability can help you, I am willing to do anything for you." His biggest wish is to have his sentence reduced and go home, and he also unexpectedly gained superpowers, and he can't hide his gratitude at all. A normal person would definitely be very excited if he gained superpowers, but he was able to remain true to himself and never thought about using his superpowers to do anything. His character is very rare. Rory nodded in satisfaction. "Don't worry, if you pass the subsequent tests, I can not only exempt you from punishment, but I can even arrange a very good job for you. Go back first." The criminal volunteer bowed to Rory, then followed the 2 super soldiers back to the detention area. The 2 experimental subjects need to be held in solitary confinement and have no chance to communicate. After the experiment, Rory made a preliminary comparison of the data collected from the 2 experimental subjects. Both of them had obvious genetic mutations. It was impossible to determine whether these uncontrollable mutations were good or bad. In Luo Rui's mind, such a result was far less simple and practical than the super soldier serum. Luo Rui deleted the radiation virus serum formula from the computer and put the remaining serum into the refrigerator. Civilian mutants will never be more useful than the military's legions of super soldiers. Starting from the next day, Luo Rui created super soldiers while collecting data from the place where the experimental subjects were imprisoned. The disabled soldier is named Anthony. He gained the ability to grow a bone knife on his arm, which is about 30 centimeters long. After a CT scan, it was found that the bone knife grew inside the bones of the back half of the arm. When used, it would extend from the inside of the back arm bone. Its hardness was far beyond that of ordinary human bones and was similar to the hardness of steel. The bone knife also had a certain recovery ability, but it recovered very slowly after being damaged. His physical body has been strengthened, and his physical strength is similar to that of an ordinary super soldier, and is far less abnormal than Luke Cage. The criminal experimental subject is named Pain. He gained enhanced strength and a body of steel, almost inheriting the abilities of Luke Cage. The difference is that Pain's muscle strength is similar to that of an ordinary person under normal circumstances. After using his abilities, his skin loses elasticity all over his body, and his strength becomes almost the same as that of Luke Cage. After collecting the physical data of Anthony and Pain, Rory came out and just saw Luke Cage being escorted into an armored vehicle by several people. Luo Rui asked curiously, "What's going on?" "Good morning, sir. Luke Cage will be attending a hearing later. After the hearing, he will be sent to the raft prison at sea to serve his permanent imprisonment. P.S. Thanks to the two book friends Sukong Bangkong and Chi Tu Chai for their rewards. Thank you brothers for your recommendation votes and monthly tickets. If you still have tickets in your hands, don't keep them, hand them over now." Chapter 67 Remarks on the launch. Although this is not the first time I've written a thank you note for a product launch, I'm still quite excited. Fortunately, I had some saved drafts, so I wasn't so panicked. The original plan was to release it on March 3 ST, but after communicating with the editor, it was decided to change the date to open the VIP chapter at 1 noon on the 5th. I also hope that brothers can give it a try and see if there is a chance to eat it again and give it a recommendation. Let me report my results to my brothers first. With their support, I reached the 20th place in the overall ranking and the 2nd place in the category. Having topped the category twice, it has been very stable in the 2nd place, with almost no fluctuation. I never expected this result, and I am very grateful to my brothers for their support. I hope brothers will support the first wave of orders after it is put on the shelves. Those who have tickets can support the event. Xia Junjun promises to work hard to update. The plot outline has also been adjusted based on the opinions of the brothers. It is still based on the timeline story and the parallel universe, and is connected with the plots dug before. In the future, I will work hard to write the stories of each stage well and bring a different Marvel world to all of you brothers. Finally, I would like to thank my brothers in advance for their support of the First Order. Thank you. Chapter 68, Seeing an Old Friend Again, Can You Please Give Me Some Face? During the Avengers Civil War, Ross used the raft prison to detain Avengers who violated the Sokovia Accords. A lot of money was spent, but the person was not locked up. I don't know what Ross was thinking. He actually planned to lock up people with superpowers in that kind of place. After Luke Cage was taken away, Rory returned to the lab to continue working. The number of super soldiers has now increased to 21, and the military has purchased carbon steel armor and a variety of individual equipment for these super soldiers. The mutants Anthony and Pain have not passed the psychological test yet and cannot be counted. At this time, Luo Rui had completely lost interest in mutants, and the radioactive virus serum was also sealed up by him. What he is studying now is the difference between Thanos genes and the Energy Eternals genes. Luo Rui did not stop his research just because he became stronger. Beep. The laboratory door opened, and the Knight's #1 super soldier walked in and reported, "Sir, the team escorting Luke Cage was attacked by an unknown force. The person has been rescued. Mr. Ross wants to dispatch the Knight's team to carry out the capture mission." Luo Rui, wearing goggles, leaned in front of an electron microscope, observing something carefully. Without looking up, he said, "No need. I injected a mutant gene strain into Luke Cage's body. He won't live for many days." "Okay, sir." Super Soldier #1 saluted and left the laboratory. After a moment, Luo Rui stood up and took off his goggles, scratching his head and said depressedly, "What exactly limits the speed of cosmic energy absorption?" When Rory was watching the Eternals Icarus, he had a question in his mind, why the energy rays emitted from his eyes could not be emitted continuously like Superman's, but were emitted intermittently in sections, and seemed to have no harm. Now Rory understood that it was because Icarus's cosmic energy supply was insufficient, so he had to rest after each shot. If there is a constant supply of cosmic energy, Icarus' eyes can continuously emit energy rays until the enemy dies. Icarus is still the most powerful among the 10 Eternals, and the other Eternals will naturally have the same problem. So there must be something limiting the rate at which they absorb cosmic energy. Rory believes that if he can solve this mystery, he will be invincible. When Ross arrived at the SHIELD base with a group of super soldiers, the place was already deserted. Damn it! Immediately order all departments to find them. I don't believe so many people could just disappear. In fact, it is really possible. Not only did the people run away, but also the equipment here was moved out. A day later, the CIA delivered a photo to Ross's desk. Mr. Ross, this is a photo taken 3 hours ago. Traces of the Hulk were found in a bay in southeast Georgia. Snapped. Let's go now. The Hulk is Ross's inner obsession. When he can't catch other Avengers, Bruce Banner is his first choice. Ross then immediately led the Knights to the southeast coast on a military plane. As soon as he left, Rory in the laboratory received the news that Ross wanted to capture Hulk. Rory smiled faintly and let Ross do whatever he wanted. Ross would have made a wasted trip anyway, and there was no way he could find Banner. As night fell, Rory walked out of the laboratory building that had not yet been renovated, got into a jeep, and drove directly away from the military base. We entered New York 2 hours later and arrived in Midtown Manhattan 2.5 hours later. Hell's Kitchen in 23 is almost the same as in 08. Relying on my memory, I came to the place where I had hidden before, and a smile appeared involuntarily on the corner of my mouth. Judging from the time, it seems that he has not been away for long, but in fact it was a long time ago. Get out of the way, little brat. You're in the way. 3 little black men came towards them, and one of them stretched out his hand to push Rory. This scene seemed familiar, and it seemed that it was the same group of people. Swish. A golden light flashed from Rory's hand, and the arm that Xiaohei stretched out to push Rory was instantly cut off and fell to the ground. Xiaohei was stunned for a moment, then after he came to his senses, he covered his wound and yelled. "Ah! My hand!" Instead of trying to get medical treatment for his injured companion, his 2 companions' subconscious reaction was to continue to cause trouble for Rory. Rory suspected that these people had no brains and only physical instincts. Swish. The broken legs from kicking and the broken hands from punching, in the blink of an eye, all 3 of the little black guys became disabled. Haha, I am your retribution. He was bullied when he was just an ordinary person. Now that he has become stronger, can he still let you little bastards bully him? After eliminating a cause and effect, Rory's thoughts instantly became clear. Then he walked along the road according to his memory, and found a bar after a while. There was a signal receiver he installed on the surveillance camera across the street from the bar. Page 52. Then they continued along this road and soon arrived at the apartment where Jessica Jones lived. Golden light formed a dagger in Rory's right hand, which crushed the door lock of Jessica Jones's residence like cutting tofu, then pushed the door open and slowly walked in. 10 minutes later, Jessica Jones, with her hood covering her face, returned to the apartment in the dark. As soon as she reached the door, she found that the door lock had been broken. She pushed the door open and rushed into the house, dumbfounded. Rory, with a smile on his face, was sitting on the sofa looking at her. I advise you not to do it, because you are no match for me, and don't even think about running away, because you can't. Jessica Jones asked defensively, Sir, may I ask why you are in my house? This is private property and I have the right to ask you. What do you want from me? Rory stood up and walked to Jessica Jones. The light blade in his hand slowly grew longer and finally stopped at Jessica Jones' throat. If Jessica Jones hadn't been involved in the operation at the military base, Rory might still have felt for her. You'd better not ask me for anything. I should be the one making the demands. The materialized cosmic energy had a physical touch but no temperature. Jessica Jones, whose throat was pressed against her, raised her head and tried to dodge backwards, but she did not dare to move her feet for fear of causing Rory to overreact. What do you want? Jessica Jones clenched her fists tightly and tried to keep her voice calm. Luke Cage was kidnapped. Who did it? I don't know what you're talking about. Jessica Jones's eyes were stunned. She really didn't know about this. Rory reached into Jessica Jones's trouser pocket, pulled out his phone, shoved it into her hand, and said, Call Danny Rand and tell him to come over now. Ross is too unreliable. After so long, he hasn't caught a single Avenger and even lost Luke Cage, whom he caught. He is a waste who is more likely to cause trouble than to accomplish anything, so Rory decided to do it himself. Jessica Jones hesitated for a long time, but finally made the call. Half an hour later, Iron Fist Danny Rand arrived at Jessica Jones's apartment and was also shocked when he saw Rory there. I came to see you two today for no other reason than to invite you back home to have a chat. I wonder if you two would be willing to give me this favor? Chapter 69 The Wanted Criminal. A bright light suddenly appeared in Jessica Jones's apartment, and then a figure crashed through the wall and fell onto the road. The light did not come from Rory, but from the energy punch that Iron Fist Danny Rand unleashed despite his injuries. Rory, who was attacked by surprise, broke through the wall and fell to the road. Far from being angry, Luo even had a happy smile on his face. It turns out that chi is also a kind of cosmic energy. The next second, Luo jumped up from the spot and returned to the apartment from the place where he crashed. Call out. Jessica Jones rushed over with her fists raised, but was grabbed by Rory's neck. Do you really want to die that much? Jessica Jones wanted to say something, but Rory lifted her high into the air and then threw her hard to the ground. Boom. Jessica Jones tilted her head and fell asleep. Iron Fist Danny Rand's fist glowed again, but unlike Rory's, Danny Rand's light was very soft, as if it could flow. Call out. A huge square shield suddenly appeared in front of Luo. Ding. The Iron Fist hit the shield, and Rory and Danny Rand were not hurt. The overflowing energy blew things in Jessica Jones's house all over the place. Swoosh, the golden shield disappeared, and a rapier appeared in Rory's other hand, piercing into Danny Rand's body in the blink of an eye. Don't move. If I retract my rapier, you'll die from excessive internal bleeding in less than 3 minutes. Are you sure you want to resist? The street heroes were no match for Rory. Jessica Jones just swung her fists without any rules. Iron Fist Danny Rand had an injury on his hand, and even if he hadn't, he couldn't pose a threat to Rory. Now Taekwon's life is in Luo's hands, and he can't do anything wrong. A few minutes later, a military vehicle escorted Jessica Jones and Danny Rand back to the military base. The military doctor sutured Danny Rand's wound and threw him into an iron cage in the base. Luo changed into clean clothes and came to the iron cell with a blood sample collector. After drawing a tube of Danny Rand's blood, he warned, "Don't even think about escaping. If that magician opens a portal to take you away, I advise you not to follow him. You might die if I find you next time." After saying this, he walked out of the iron cage with the blood sample. Jessica Jones suddenly rushed over at this time, grabbed the iron fence and asked loudly, "Have we met somewhere before?" Luo paused, shook his head firmly and denied it, "No, we haven't met before. You got the wrong person." Looking at Rory's leaving back, Jessica Jones didn't know if it was her illusion. She always felt that she seemed to have seen Rory somewhere. Rory returned to the laboratory and monitored various data on Iron Fist Danny Rand's blood sample. Sure enough, he discovered the difference. Danny Rand's cell membrane and the Eternal cell membrane contain the same energy-conducting substance, which means that Danny Rand's Iron Fist also uses cosmic energy. It's just that his method of using it is a little rough and not concrete, and it can only serve to strengthen the fist. Rory then conducted a microscopic study on the cell membrane of Danny Rand's blood sample. He found that although it was made of the same substance, Danny Rand's was thicker. If this substance was compared to the wires used for conducting electrical energy, then Danny Rand's conduction effect would definitely be better. Is this the benefit of practicing? Luo was immediately happy when he got this result. As long as he can find the difference, Luo will have the opportunity to become stronger, but the problem is that he doesn't know how to practice. Is a transplant possible? Do I really need to practice cultivation? The next morning, Luo started practicing Tai Chi in the backyard of his residence. I went back to the house, took a shower, brought breakfast, and turned on the TV. According to a spokesperson for Congress, SHIELD has been deemed an organized defection, and the Pentagon has officially submitted a document to the Security Council requesting the suspension of all SHIELD activities. Avengers members including Clint Barton, James Rhodes, Bruce Banner, and many others have been included in the global wanted list. The military has made it clear that defection will not be tolerated. According to relevant sources, Nick Fury, director of SHIELD, planned and organized an attack on a military base 124 kilometers outside of New York. Almost all the news on TV is about superheroes. Rory was a little confused. Although he had not had much contact with Nick Fury, the current Nick Fury was completely different from what he remembered. How could the wily one-eyed fox end up like this? Jingle bell. Luo was thinking about the problem when the phone rang. Hey. Sir, the testing on Anthony and Payne is complete. What should we do next? Luo said casually, arrange for them to start work, and then help me arrange a car to come over, I need to go out. Rory had promised to send Payne home to visit his family. Now that SHIELD has run away and the Avengers have been broken up, Rory, in a good mood, is ready to go out for a walk, relax, and take Payne back with him. Payne was an accountant before he was imprisoned on charges of falsifying accounts and embezzling public funds. He had only been on the job for a month, but all the bad debts from the previous year were blamed on him. Those who understand will understand. He lives in the suburbs of Princeton and is considered a country boy. He has an elderly wife and 3 children. The neighbors all know that his family is not doing well. His husband is in prison and they rarely interact with him. Even his children are discriminated against by their classmates. That day, 3 military Humvees drove into the town and attracted a lot of attention, especially when they stopped in front of Payne's house. The surrounding neighbors came out of their homes and stood in the yard watching. Including Payne's family, no one dared to go out of the house and could only stand inside and look outside through the screen door. The castle rule can give people a sense of security, and for ordinary people, home is the safest place. Click. The door of the military Humvee opened and Payne got out. When the wife behind the door saw that it was Payne, she covered her mouth with her hands in disbelief, and immediately pushed open the door and rushed out. Payne. Alia. The two people hugged each other and cried with joy. Just when the family was having fun, suddenly a missile came from a distance, and with a boom it blew away the Hummer that Rory was riding in. The Hummer turned 720 degrees in the sky with flames, and the wreckage fell to the ground, still emitting flames 2 meters high. Click. The burning Humvee split in the middle, and Rory walked out of the flames with a gloomy face and looked up into the air. He tore off his tattered clothes, revealing a pure black inner protective suit. The high-temperature, wear-resistant, and tear-resistant protective suit was prepared by Rory not long ago in order to prevent the clothes from being torn during combat. He didn't expect to use it so soon. War Machine Rhodes flew over Rory's head, then stopped in mid-air not far away and raised his arm, ready to launch another missile. Bang! Suddenly there was a gunshot, and the War Machine armor in the sky was knocked off balance. Rhodes' sight deviated, and the micro-missile fired from his arm brushed past Rory's cheek and exploded on the side of the road. Buzz 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 thump thump thump. 2 Gatling guns suddenly opened fire, strafing the War Machine Rhodes. Rory simply found 4 super soldiers to drive for him, and started to fight back as soon as he was attacked. Snapped. The super soldier who was shooting suddenly flew into the air, but there was no one around him. Page 53. At the same time, a portal lit up from under the feet of another super soldier. The super soldier holding the material felt his feet go empty and disappeared directly on the road. Strange. Rory snorted coldly and looked around. The next second, a portal lit up behind Rory, and Black Panther Chatra and Winter Soldier Bucky rushed out at the same time. Snapped. A huge golden shield suddenly appeared in Rory's hand to block the attacks of the two people. Haha, it seems you still don't give up. Black Panther Chatla thought there was no need to communicate, and swung his vibranium claws across Rory's chest, but was blocked by the golden armor that appeared on Rory's body. Swish. Bang. The armor disappeared, and a giant golden sword appeared and slashed down. The Black Panther Chatla had no time to dodge and could only raise his arms to block it. The strength of the two men was not in the same league. Black Panther Chatla knelt on one knee under the impact of the huge force, barely blocking Rory's attack. Rory did not let go, and the giant sword pressed the Black Panther Chatla so hard that he could not move. Behind him, the Winter Soldier Bucky rushed over, waving his metal arm, and punched Payne with a clang. After hardening, his skin became as hard as steel, easily blocking Bucky's punch. Then Payne and the Winter Soldier scuffled together. Bucky is experienced in fighting and is proficient in all kinds of body movements and steps. Payne is a mutant who has just gained superpowers and has no basic fighting experience, but Payne is invulnerable to swords and guns. He can't hit people, but he has invincible ability to withstand blows. Payne blocked Bucky, the Winter Soldier, and 2 super soldiers chased War Machine with Gatling guns. Rory held the Black Panther down with his giant sword and grinned, "You don't want to be a good king, but you have to come here to die. It's not certain who will die." Black Panther used all his strength to carry the giant sword and had difficulty speaking. The next second, Rory suddenly felt something hit him. Although it didn't hurt, it was very annoying. Ant-Man. No wonder the super soldier suddenly tripped, it turned out that there was an ant causing trouble. Rory looked around but couldn't find any trace of Ant-Man Scott. He snorted coldly and said, "Scott, I advise you to think it through before you take any action. Don't forget that you have a family and children. Are you sure you want to get involved?" Family is Ant-Man's biggest weakness, especially during the Flash Oblivion period when he spent 5 years less time with his daughter, which made him feel very guilty. Seeing that Ant-Man stopped making trouble, Rory held down Black Panther with one hand and transformed a dagger with the other hand, preparing to give Black Panther Chatra a fatal blow. Suddenly, 2 portals opened at the same time on Rory's left and right. Whoosh bang. Captain Marvel flew out from the right, holding Rory, and crashed into the portal on the left. Call out. The portal disappeared in the blink of an eye. Rory, who was knocked into the portal, suddenly came to an unfamiliar environment, surrounded by endless snow. Captain Marvel was thrown out by Rory and rolled several times on the snow before stopping. In addition to Captain Marvel, there are also Doctor Strange, Dr. Hulk Banner, Abomination Brinsky, and an Asian man with an iron ring on his hand. Luo looked around and asked, "Where is Thor? Why isn't he here?" "Umph, we are enough to deal with you." Captain Marvel Carol snorted coldly, and suddenly golden light appeared on her body and she rushed up first. Clang! A huge golden sword appeared in an instant and knocked Carol away. Carol, unable to control his strength, crashed into a snow-capped peak in the distance the next second. Strange's rune whip swung over, but was easily shattered by Lowry. Who knows what Strange was thinking, but he formed hand seals and opened them, actually using Vishanti's blade to engage Lowry in close combat. It was even more outrageous than an old man hanging himself. Roar! The Hulk, Dr. Banner, roared and rushed towards Rory, but suddenly stopped halfway and clapped his hands together. Snapped! A huge shockwave swept up the sky full of wind and snow. Zheng, the energy sword in Luo's hand, pierced into the ice surface, and it only shook slightly under the shockwave. Chapter 70, Those who know the times are like cattle and horses. The Hulk Banner has learned his lesson and knows that the golden giant sword in Rory's hand can cause damage to him, so he is hesitant in close combat. Swoosh! The golden giant sword disappeared and transformed into two one-handed swords, one on the left and one on the right, chasing the Hulk and the Abomination and slashing wildly all the way. Luo leaped over the Abomination's head and slashed at its neck with two one-handed swords. He said coldly, "I said I would help you get out of prison, but you ended up with these wanted criminals. I'm so disappointed." Clang! The sword in Luo's hand failed to take the life of the Abomination, but was blocked by several rings. Shang-Chi! 10 rings. The Abomination that survived rolled and crawled to the side, still explaining to Luo, "Sir, please listen to me. They brought me out and said that they would pardon me immediately if they caught you. The only person who could say such a thing is Nick Fury, that big liar." Disgust was very sensible. After being scared, he didn't dare to attack Luo again and hid aside to watch the show. Ding 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 ding. 10 iron rings flew everywhere, and the next second they returned to Shang-Chi's wrist, charging towards Luo at the same time. Luo materialized a shield to block the 10 rings. Then the 10 rings connected into a whip and lashed towards Luo. The shield disappeared, and Luo grabbed one of the 10 rings with his backhand. Okay. Luo was suddenly stunned. He actually felt very clear cosmic energy from the iron ring. Then he immediately injected cosmic energy into the iron ring he had caught. Buzz buzz buzz! The orange iron ring turned into bright gold in the next second, and at the same time it was disconnected from the other 9 iron rings. Wow! I didn't expect the 10 rings to be a product of the Celestial Clan. Since they can't materialize cosmic energy, they use it this way. Not bad. Give it back to me. Shang-Chi shouted. Luo put the iron ring on his hand, and suddenly realized that the speed of absorbing cosmic energy in his body had increased a little. His eyes lit up. What a treasure! He laughed and said, "No, it should be returned to me." Then he rushed directly towards Shang-Chi, ready to snatch the other 9 rings. Boom! Captain Marvel broke through the snowy peaks and flew over. Strange followed closely behind, wielding the blade of Vishanti. The Hulk, Dr. Banner, ran wildly on the snow with his fists clenched. The Shang-Chi in front of him opened the 9 rings and took a defensive stance. Rory, who was surrounded in the middle, was not panicked at all. Without Thor's Stormbreaker, these people could not do anything to him. In the eyes of others, Luo was reaching out to grab Shang-Chi's 9 rings, but the giant sword that Luo transformed suddenly lengthened by 10 centimeters, and when it was swung, it was not towards Shang-Chi, but behind him. Die to me! Swish! Strange, who had caught up, was stunned for a moment, and then the blade of Vishanti shattered instantly, and his arm was cut off along with it. Doctor Strange. PhD. What? A bloody arm fell to the snow, leaving a large area of bright red. While attacking Strange, Hulk Banner's oversized fist knocked Rory away. Captain Marvel caught up and released energy attacks with both hands, but unexpectedly there was a bottomless glacier crack below, and Rory fell directly into the abyss of the crack. Dr. Banner helped Strange, who had a broken arm, up. Shang-Chi picked up the broken arm and said, "It should still be in time to send him to the hospital. How are we going to get back if Strange's hand is broken? Captain Marvel can fly, but if she takes Strange on a high-speed flight, Strange will definitely get into an accident." Cell phone. Strange gritted his teeth and said. Carol quickly took out a cell phone from Strange, found the name of Wong and dialed it. A few minutes later, a portal opened and Master Wong shouted from behind the door, "Come in quickly. I'll take you to the hospital." Hulk Banner entered the portal first, holding Strange, and Carol followed closely behind. Just as Shang-Chi was about to go in, the ice ground suddenly broke open and Luo crawled out from under the ice. "Stay here." A hand grabbed Shang-Chi's wrist as he stepped into the portal, and the mage named Wang was so scared that he immediately closed the portal. Luo Rui pulled out and Shang-Chi pulled in. At the moment before the portal was completely closed, Luo Rui pulled down several iron rings with a clatter. After returning to the sanctuary, Shang-Chi looked at his wrist with only 6 iron rings left and was in tears. The portal disappeared, and Rory turned to look at the only abomination left. Thump. Abomination knelt on his knees and clasped his hands together. "Sir, please don't kill me. I was forced to do so." He begged for mercy, but secretly cursed the Avengers in his heart, saying they were bad people. Everyone left, but he was the only one left. Isn't this selling out teammates? Page 54. Luo Rui put the 3 iron rings he had just obtained on his wrists, and a huge sword appeared in his hand and he came in front of the abomination. He placed the blade on Abomination's shoulder and said, "Give me a reason not to kill you. I surrender. I want to join you, sir. I am willing to be your slave." There were only him and Luo Rui in the endless world of ice and snow, and no one could understand the despair he felt at that moment. "Don't even think about admitting defeat. Even calling me dad is fine, unless you don't want to live anymore." Snored. Luo Rui slowly put away his giant sword, then jumped onto Abomination's shoulders and said, "Go southeast." Luo Rui's cell phone was destroyed when the military Humvee exploded. "The most important thing now is to find a way to get back." "Okay, sir." Abomination carried Luo Rui all the way, and this time he really became like a beast of burden. At Payne's house in the countryside of Princeton, the battle ended quickly after Rory disappeared. Black Panther Chatra and War Machine Rhodes ran away. Payne and 3 super soldiers worked together to capture the Winter Soldier Bucky. Luo Rui's disappearance did not cause any waves in society, but it caused quite a stir among the top leaders. Because only Luo Rui can make the immortality potion, it concerns the lives of a group of bigwigs at the pinnacle of power. Half an hour after Luo Rui disappeared, all departments' machines started running immediately with unprecedented efficiency. They had only one goal, which was to find Luo Rui. "Sir, according to the night's report, Dr. Rory was pulled into a portal by Captain Marvel Carroll. His exact destination is still unknown." Ross said with a gloomy face, "Cha, no matter what method you use, you must find him back for me. Whether it's the inhibitor after transforming into Red Hulk, or the immortality potion that the Immortal Society needs to help him become the president, all of them are inseparable from Rory. Some people are even more anxious than Ross. A big shot who just joined the Eternal Life Society is dying. The other party promised that as long as his life can be prolonged, he will definitely make him the president. But the 20 doses of immortality potion that Luo Rui promised him have not been delivered yet. If it takes too long, the head of the politician family will definitely die first. Sir, although Dr. Rory was not found, the Intelligence Bureau found this. There was a photo on Ross's desk, and when Ross saw it, his eyes froze instantly. Nick Fury? Yes, sir. He was seen in Moscow 3 days ago and had contact with several political leaders. It is very likely that he has defected to the enemy. Ross snorted, "Contact Moscow immediately and ask them to send the people back, otherwise." Before Ross could finish his words, another person broke into his office. "Sir, Dr. Rory has been found. He is currently in a small town on the coast of Greenland. I called the military base 10 minutes ago to arrange a plane to pick him up." This was the only good news Ross heard today, and his gloomy face immediately warmed up a little. "Go and make arrangements." With the help of a military plane, Luo Rui quickly returned to the military base, bringing Abomination back with him. Abomination still could not escape the fate of being imprisoned, he was just transferred from one place to another. Upon hearing that Payne and the super soldier worked together to capture the Winter Soldier Bucky, Rory praised Payne a little. "That's right. Follow me and work hard from now on." Luo Rui patted Payne's shoulder and said, "You should give yourself a name. Think about it carefully when you go back. That way, everyone will know you better." After saying that, Luo Rui turned and went into the laboratory. He now urgently wants to know the function of the 10 rings. Since putting on the 4 stolen iron rings, Luo Rui's body's speed of absorbing cosmic energy has been greatly improved. The giant sword that appeared when he put his hands together was almost 3 meters long. Unfortunately, Rory is neither a physicist nor an energy scientist, and he has studied it for a long time but still can't figure it out. It's a pity that Tony Stark is no longer around, otherwise he would have been able to discover something. The 4 iron rings can not only increase the speed of absorbing cosmic energy, but can even be used as weapons. However, Luo Rui is not proficient in fighting and martial arts, so they are not as comfortable to use as the giant sword. While Rory was studying the 10 rings, Ross came running over in a helicopter. "Dr. Rory, I'm relieved to see that you're okay." Ross has been in good spirits recently. The life-extending potion has allowed him to grow black hair and a black beard again. After turning into Hulk, his body has also become much stronger, as if he has returned to his 40s. Rory knew what he was here for, so he opened the refrigerator door and took out a box of medicine. He said, "This is what you asked for. Use it sparingly. There won't be any more in the near future." "I understand." Ross carefully took the immortality potion and then said, "By the way, we were suddenly attacked today. It's better to be careful when going out next time. If you really can't help it, bring more people with you." Rory nodded. This was an organized and planned operation. I don't know why Thor didn't participate. I cut off one of Strange's hands. Don't even think about opening a portal again. Ross then took out the photos of Nick Fury taken in Moscow. After a brief introduction to Nick Fury's situation, Rory suddenly understood. "No wonder." "What?" Ross asked again, not hearing clearly. Rory shook his head and didn't answer Ross's question, but fell into deep thought. No wonder Rory always felt strange during these conflicts with the Avengers. Raiding a military base and running away with Shield and the Avengers, this kind of stupid thing is obviously not something Nick Fury can do. Now Rory finally understood what Nick Fury meant, because this Nick Fury was not Nick Fury at all, but a Skrull. His purpose is to intensify the relationship between Rory and the Avengers, and the relationship between Shield and the Federation. This time, the proactive appearance in Moscow is intended to intensify the conflict between the United States and Russia. This way the Skrulls can reap the benefits. It's such a headache. I'm just trying to do my research. So Rory told Ross his guess and let him worry about these problems. Ross was shocked. It was not that he did not believe Rory, but he needed to verify the authenticity of the news. After all, it was related to international relations. After Ross hurriedly left, Rory also left the laboratory and came to the place where the Winter Soldier was imprisoned. He wanted to fulfill his promise to send Winter Soldier Bucky to Hell to meet Steve, so he had to send him there, and he had to send him there personally. However, the Winter Soldier's arm must be kept. After all, vibranium is a rare material. Chapter 71, Fulfilling the Promise. Little Ant-Man gets in big trouble. Without his vibranium arm, the Winter Soldier is no match for even an ordinary super soldier. Rory came to the iron cage where Bucky, the Winter Soldier, was imprisoned. Bucky lowered his head in the cage, and his hair covered the side of his face, making it difficult to see his expression. The super soldier on guard walked up to Rory carrying a box. When he opened it, it contained the vibranium arm of the Winter Soldier Bucky. "You guys go out first and send this to the laboratory." Several super soldiers on guard obeyed the order and left, leaving only Rory and the Winter Soldier in the cage. After everyone left and the door was closed, the Winter Soldier looked up and asked, "Are you here to kill me?" Rory unlocked the door and entered the iron cage, saying calmly, "Steve must be very bored down there alone. I'm here to take you to meet Steve. This is the promise I made to him." When Rory was first brought back by Strange, the Winter Soldier suggested killing Rory. From that moment on, Winter Soldier Bucky was on Rory's death list. It's just that the time of death was delayed a little bit. If Bucky ran fast enough, he might be able to catch up with Steve, who died first. Winter Soldier Bucky smiled coldly. "Steve is still too kind. If it were me, I should have killed you the first time I caught you. What's the point of saying that now? It's just your powerless rage against fate." A moment later, Rory left the cell, leaving behind the cold body of Winter Soldier Bucky. The body was sent to Angus by military guards for research. Angus was originally an assistant arranged by Ross, but later he started his own research to study Captain America's body. Although the enhanced serum developed by Hydra in the Winter Soldier's body was not very effective, it still had some research value. Inside the Sanctuary of Sanctuary in London, Chatra, the Black Panther, said in a steady voice, "I'm going back to Wakanda. Sorry everyone, Rory's situation is up to you guys from now on." After saying this, he turned around and left the Holy of Holies. No one spoke to stop him. Dr. Banner, who had transformed back into human form, sighed and said, "I don't know where Thor has gone, and now even Doctor Strange has lost an arm. We have lost too much. I think we should stop this." One-armed Strange supported himself and said, "If we can't destroy Rory, our world will be destroyed, and we haven't failed yet. Not defeated. Steve is dead, Sam is dead, Bucky is captured, Chatra is gone, and you yourself have a broken arm and can no longer use magic. How can we win? Do we have to kill all the Avengers before it's over?" Banner didn't want to attack Strange, but he really saw no hope of winning. Without their spiritual leader, the Avengers are like a pile of loose sand. The one who was actually feeling more depressed was Shang-Chi. He only had 6 rings left out of 10, and not only had his strength been greatly reduced, but he also got into a big trouble. Shang-Chi thought he was joining a just cause, but the reason turned out to be a prophecy. Strange, looking pale, said, "Bring Wanda back, add Thor and Carol, and we will definitely win." Captain Marvel Carol finally spoke at this time and asked, "Where is Thor?" "Something happened in Asgard. Thor is going to deal with the problem there. Then why can't we wait for him to come back before taking action?" Carol looked at Strange in confusion. Strange shook his head, "Because we don't have much time. If the time stones were still there, Strange would have many ways to stop Rory, but without the time stones, Strange could no longer accurately predict the future through time travel like he did against Thanos." Shang-Chi shook off the sadness of losing his 4 bracelets and asked, "What should we do now?" After thinking for a moment, Strange said, "You go to Asgard and wait for Thor to come back. I will go back to Camartage and use the power of other wizards to try to find Wanda. I hope there is still time." The wizard named Wong opened a portal and sent the others to the small town of Asgard in Norway, and then took Strange back to Camartage. Strange lost an arm. In this situation, it is not easy to open the dimensional space and find Wanda accurately. There was another superhero who participated in this operation but did not show up, that was Ant-Man Scott. He had a family and children, and he immediately left the scene after being warned by Rory. Ant-Man Scott didn't buy a plane ticket. After shrinking, he directly boarded a passenger plane to San Francisco. Page 55. "When I got home and just took off my Ant-Man suit, Hope, the second-generation Wasp, walked in with a cup of coffee. 'Hey Scott, I haven't seen you in over 20 hours, where have you been?' 'Well, the weather is nice today, I'm going out for a walk.' Scott Lang smiled and told a little lie. Hope looked at the overcast sky outside, which was about to rain at any moment, and shook his head speechlessly. "I don't know what Kathy has been busy with lately. If you have time, I think you should pay more attention to your daughter." The two were chatting when suddenly there were bursts of sudden brake sounds outside the house. When I went to the window and looked out, I saw rows of military vehicles parked on the side of the road, completely surrounding Ant-Man Scott's home. Hope, who knew Ant-Man best, turned around and asked, "Are you in trouble again?" Ant-Man Scott smiled awkwardly, "A little bit, just a little bit." Click. Rory got off the military vehicle, and Steel Pane and Deathblade Anthony stood on both sides of Rory, one on each side, followed by a dozen super soldiers. The nicknames Steel Man and Deathblade were chosen by them themselves. The Avengers all have their own nicknames, so of course they want one too. When you go out, your identity is given by yourself. When Ant-Man Scott saw that the person coming was Rory, his heart began to tremble. Ding dong. Rory politely rang the doorbell. Hope came over, opened the door, and asked, "Who are you looking for?" "This is Scott Lang's home, right? Are you Hope?" Rory smiled and peeked inside, just in time to see Scott sneaking behind the door. The Ant-Man family is 2 generations of superheroes after all, and they are not impressed by Rory's show. Hope immediately said, "If Scott has made any mistakes, please contact our lawyers. If not, please leave." Swish. The bone knife on Deathblade Anthony's arm appeared instantly, looking at Hope with unfriendly eyes. Rory smiled and waved his hands. "Don't be nervous. I'm a research consultant for a military laboratory. You can call me Rory. We were attacked by Ant-Man Scott a few hours ago. This is no longer a crime, so you'd better call him out for a chat, otherwise I'll have to take your family away by force." Hope widened his eyes and turned to look at Scott behind the door. Scott also shook his head with a look of grievance. Hope had no choice but to move aside the body blocking the door and invite Rory into the house. Scott, who was hiding behind the door, came out and looked at Rory with an awkward smile. Rory patted Ant-Man on the shoulder and said, "You're a smart man. You should be glad for the choice you made." Entering the living room, Rory sat on the sofa and crossed his legs. 2 bodyguards, Steel Body Pane and Deathblade Anthony, stood behind Rory. Ant-Man Scott stood not far away scratching his head awkwardly. Fortunately, Hope came over with coffee and broke the awkward atmosphere. "Mr. Rory?" Hops pulled Scott to sit across from Rory and broke the silence, asking, "Is there some misunderstanding here?" Rory smiled and said, "I believe Mr. Scott must have believed the slander of certain people, but it is also true that he attacked me." Hope turned to look at Scott, hoping he could give a reasonable explanation. Ant-Man Scott quickly said, "It was Strange who came to me. He said he wanted to save the world, so I followed him." After hearing this, Hope slapped his forehead with a headache. Rory moved his fingers, and Pane immediately took out a document and handed it to him. Rory placed the document on the table and said, "This is a control document issued by the Pentagon military. It has been signed by Congress. Effective immediately, control will be placed on Ant-Man Scott and his equipment. Until the restrictions are lifted, Mr. Scott must wear a restricted tracking device, otherwise he will be court-martialed." Hope immediately picked up the document and began to read it. Normally, even if Scott is guilty, the restriction order can only be implemented after trial. However, This document is an approval document issued on the grounds of endangering national security, and it is signed by the Parliament, which is equivalent to directly sentencing Scott. Luo Rui continued, I came here for another reason. I heard that Mr. Hank Pym is an expert in the quantum field. I'd like to talk to him. I wonder if it would be convenient for you. Hope handed the restraining order to Scott and said, I need to call my father. A few minutes later, Hope returned to the living room after finishing the call and said, my father will be here later, Scott. Don't worry, the restriction won't last long. About 20 minutes later, Hank Pym and his wife Janet came to Scott's house to meet Rory. This is not the first time Rory and Hank Pym have met. They met once before at a military base in New Jersey in 1970, although they just passed by each other. And that time Rory also stole 11 of his Pym particles, which led to a complete break between Hank Pym and Howard Stark. You want to see me? Rory smiled and stood up, holding out his hand. I've heard a lot about you, Dr. Pym. Hope had already told Hank Pym about Scott's matter over the phone. Although Hank Pym had a bad temper, he did not show any displeasure to Rory because of Scott's matter. Luo Rui stated his purpose directly, I heard that Dr. Pym is very knowledgeable about subatomic particles and the quantum field. I have something I'd like Dr. Pym to take a look at. He took off a 10 ring and handed it to Hank Pym, then used cosmic energy to activate the remaining 3 10 rings in his hand. Hank Pym held it in his hand with a puzzled look in his eyes. When the 10 rings reacted, he observed for a moment and immediately became interested. I'm not quite sure what this thing is made of yet, but I suspect it's an energy excitation device. The energy entanglement should be almost the same as the release method of Pym particles. Luo Rui is an authority in the field of biological genetics, but he has only a superficial understanding of other fields. Although Hank Pym's research in the field of energy rays is limited, he is a person who studies the quantum field after all, and his energy utilization is definitely much better than Rory. Oh. Can you tell me more about that? Hank Pym shook his head, it's hard to draw a conclusion now. I need some professional equipment to analyze and study. Then Rory left Ant-Man Scott behind and drove directly to the laboratory of Dr. Pym's company. Chapter 72, The Copycat Superman is not Superman, but a copycat. Dr. Pym's company, which conducts quantum research, has many advanced devices. However, due to different fields, Rory does not understand the detailed parameters and specific uses of these devices. Dr. Pym asked Rory for a 10 ring and placed it on the instrument, first performing a composition scan and then an energy analysis. With the help of equipment, the various elemental components contained in the 10 rings are analyzed. This is a metal element that has never appeared on Earth. It is extremely hard, and it also has the property of absorbing energy. Dr. Pym pointed to the needle on the instrument's monitoring meter and said, it's currently impossible to determine the specific type of energy being absorbed, but the energy activity index is very stable. Dr. Pym then took out an energy transmitter, adjusted the parameters and position, and began to conduct energy activation tests on the 10 rings. OM. A beam of laser accurately shot at the 10 rings. The originally calm 10 rings immediately emitted a light blue light, and the values on the detection table rose rapidly. Apart from that, there was no other reaction. The 10 rings that were hit by the laser did not react, but the other 3 10 rings on Luo Rui's hands did react. It seemed as if some power was activated and continuously infused into Luo Rui's body. Dr. Pym, please stop. Rory immediately stopped and briefly explained the situation. Dr. Pym frowned and thought for a moment before saying, I suspect this is an energy transmission device. One side is connected to an energy source, and the other side can transmit the same amount of energy over a long distance. Luo Rui frowned and asked, is there any way to identify the composition of this thing in a short time? Dr. Pym pondered for a moment and then said, Stark Group has a micromolecular detector that can locate metal components. Unfortunately, Tony Stark is no longer with us. If you want to find out what this thing does, I suggest you talk to those wizards. Luo Rui curled his lips in disdain. Those wizards wanted to kill him, so how could they tell him the origin of this thing? At this moment, the ringing of a cell phone suddenly came from Luo Rui's pocket. Ross's voice came from the other end immediately after the call was connected. Rory frowned, then hung up the phone and said to Dr. Pym, I have something else to do, so I'll go back first. If you have any new discoveries, please call me at any time. Okay, Scott's restraining order. Dr. Pym hesitated. Luo Rui smiled and said, it's been very chaotic outside lately. It would be safer for him to stay at home. There are also the Pym particles developed by Dr. Pym. If it's convenient, I would like to purchase some. James Rhodes flew his war machine to a nuclear-contaminated area. Banging. As soon as the battle suit landed on the ground, several strange-looking greenskins surrounded him. How did you come? War Machine's mask was lifted, revealing Rhodes' face, and the next second he turned into the same greenskin as the other party. I'm being sought by the federal government and the military, and I can't stay there any longer. Entering the abandoned factory, Nick Fury and several green-skinned Skrulls were sitting at a table arguing fiercely. We must launch operations around the world and provoke war as soon as possible, so that we Skrulls will have more opportunities. We just want a home where we can survive. There is no need to start a war. Even after the fake Rhodes dressed as War Machine came in, the quarrel continued. The intelligence agency suddenly reported that a monster appeared on the streets of London and attacked civilians, followed by the appearance of 3 people with superpowers. Among them was Cersei, who worked at the museum. If we were to ask who else on Earth could pose a threat to Rory now, besides Thor, there would only be the 10 Eternals. Rory killed one with his own hands and there were 9 left. The most threatening ones were the fake Superman Ikaris and Tina, who could also transform into weapons. I originally wanted to accumulate more strength before looking for trouble with the Eternals, but unfortunately time waits for no one, and the divine manifestation is about to begin. The god born on Earth is called Tiamut. Luo Rui does not know the exact location, but only knows that it is roughly near the Indian Ocean. Rory immediately informed Ross to make arrangements in the Indian Ocean, while he himself led his men to Ajak's residence. Just as Rory thought, Ajak had become a cold corpse, lying alone in the backyard. He picked up Ajak's body and returned to the house. An energy dagger appeared in his hand and pressed it against Ajak's chest. After thinking for a while, he put the energy dagger away. Luo Rui originally wanted to dig out the energy ball in Ajak's body to study it, but when he thought that this thing was a magic tool to communicate with the 6-barrel god, he gave up the idea of researching it. "Sir, what you asked for has been delivered." Steel Payne knocked on the door and whispered outside. Page 56. Payne thought Rory was sad about Ajak's death, so he didn't dare to speak loudly. On the other side, Deathblade Anthony was unloading things from the car. Rory didn't know when Cersei would come, so he arranged for Anthony to prepare daily necessities for the next few days. Click. Rory opened the door and took a box from Payne. The box contained a vibranium puncture needle and a set of testing equipment. After returning to the house, Ajak's blood and bone marrow were extracted one after another. In this environment, Rory continued his experiments on the Eternals. Under the microscope, Ajak's blood and bone marrow had completely lost their activity, but the intact tissue was still there, which did not affect Luo Rui's cell observation and analysis. A few days passed in a flash. Cersei and her group finally arrived at their residence in Ajak, South Dakota. Payne and Anthony were guarding the door. Ikaris came over and asked first, "Who are you and why are you here?" "This is federal land. I'm from the federal military. Why am I here? Do I need to report to you?" Payne curled his lips in disdain, and the next second, Ikaris grabbed his neck. Payne immediately used his superpowers and his whole body suddenly stiffened. Ikaris increased his strength slightly and found that the man was too hard. He couldn't move him at all without using all his strength. Swish. A bone knife appeared from the cold Anthony's broken arm, and he stared at Ikaris, ready to strike at any time. "Ikaris." Cersei came over to stop Ikaris, then said to Payne and Anthony, "We are old friends of Ajak. May I ask who you are?" Click. The wooden door opened, and Luo Rui nodded from behind it, "Come in." The appearance of Rory and the other two made Cersei feel puzzled, and Ikaris next to her was also muttering in his heart. After Ajak was killed by the deviant, it was Ikaris who brought the body back. Now 3 strangers suddenly appeared, and Ikaris couldn't figure out what was going on. Cersei, Ikaris, and the elf entered the house and saw Ajak lying on the ground at a glance. "Ajak." Cersei rushed over immediately, but all she touched was a cold corpse. Ikaris turned to look at Rory. "You killed Ajak." Luo Rui had been on guard against him for a long time. The moment Ikaris attacked, he conjured up a shield to block Ikaris's fist. Seeing the shield transformed from cosmic energy, Ikaris was stunned for a moment. In this instant, Rory kicked Ikaris out of the house. Boom. Ikaris crashed through the wall of the wooden house and flew backwards for dozens of meters, then slowly stopped and floated in the air. After looking at Luo Rui, he raised his fist and dived over at an accelerated speed. Luo Rui raised his hand to block Ikaris' energy beam, then put away his shield and punched out with all his strength, colliding fiercely with Ikaris' fist. Boom. A huge shockwave appeared, and the wooden house, which was not very sturdy to begin with, was blown down directly. The weak Cersei and the elf were also blown to and fro. Luo Rui's leg sank half a meter into the ground, and Ikaris flew back at an even faster speed with a whoosh. Ikaris is very powerful among the 10 Eternals, but he is still inferior to the Eternals branch on Titan. In addition, Rory has 4 10 rings on his hands. With the physical suppression and energy blessing, it is difficult for Ikaris to defeat Rory in terms of strength. Ikaris had never been so angry before, so he immediately flew over Rory's head and started shooting cosmic rays from his eyes. Rory raised his hand and easily conjured up a shield to block the rays. At this moment, Rory finally understood the feeling of Steve using the shield to force a 50-50 fight. I may not be able to beat you, but don't even think about defeating me. At this time, Cersei and the elf stood up from the ruins of the wooden house and were about to join the battle, but were controlled by both Pain and Anthony. Cersei's superpower is to manipulate matter. She can transform any non-living matter into other forms, such as stone into water, wood, etc. The elf's superpower is to create illusions, which are just tricks to deceive people. The superpowers of both of them are almost useless in actual combat. Pain's powerful arms clamped the elf's neck, and Anthony's bone knife stabbed Cersei's throat. Acaris, who was about to continue, stopped right where he was and warned, "Release my companions immediately." Companions? Do you really consider them companions? Rory put away his shield and laughed. It's useless to sow discord between us, and you have no idea how dangerous the situation is. It's best to let us go immediately. Cersei also tried to persuade her, but Rory fell on deaf ears. Rory turned his head to look at Cersei and said calmly, "You don't really think I killed a Jack, do you?" Cersei was stunned for a moment and asked, "If it's not you, then where does your ability come from?" "Of course it was a Jack who taught me. She taught me how to use cosmic energy, but unfortunately she died at the hands of her own people in the end." Rory said this while looking at Acaris. Hearing Rory say this, Acaris's face changed immediately and he couldn't help but rush towards Rory again. "Acaris! Calm down!" Cersei yelled and immediately stopped Acaris. Then he stared at Rory and asked, "What do you mean by that? Do you know who killed a Jack?" Judging from the way a Jack died, Cersei can conclude that it was an abnormal person who killed a Jack, but there seems to be another hidden meaning in Rory's words. Rory glanced at Acaris with disdain and replied, "I was here once a few months ago. When I left a few cameras and happened to capture someone's actions." Chapter 73, On behalf of all human beings on Earth, I thank you. What do you mean? Explain yourself clearly. Sissy looked at Rory with a gloomy expression. Rory waved his hand, signaling Pain and Anthony to let the two men go. Pain let go of the elf and ran to the car, pulling out the tablet and handing it to Rory. He tapped a few times on the tablet and handed it to Cersei. Cersei and the elf looked at it together. After a moment, they both looked at Acaris in the air with strange eyes. Acaris immediately said anxiously, "Cersei, he is trying to sow discord between us, don't you believe me? Then can you explain what's going on?" Cersei held up the tablet and looked at Acaris. After Acaris landed and read the contents on the tablet, his face turned pale and red. It recorded how Acaris took a Jack away and how he brought a Jack's body back. As the leader of the Ten, he was killed by his own companions in such an unclear manner. Neither Cersei nor the elves could understand what Acaris did. "Yes, I killed her, but I had my reasons." Acaris glanced at Rory and said angrily, "Since you don't believe me, then so be it." After saying that, Acaris took off from the spot and disappeared above the clouds in the blink of an eye. Acaris's departure made Cersei and the elves suddenly melancholy. The purpose of their coming here was to find a Jack to find out about the reappearance of the deviants. Without Acaris' protection, if they were attacked by the deviants again, they would most likely die. Cersei slowly approached a Jack's body. Suddenly, a round ball floated out from a Jack's chest and then entered Cersei's body. The next second, everything in front of Cersei disappeared, replaced by a huge six-barreled godalism. Before Cersei could react, she disappeared in the blink of an eye and returned to the ruins of a Jack's cabin. Rory came over and whispered, "That man was called Acaris, right? I know why he wanted to kill a Jack." "Why?" Cersei turned to look at Rory. Rory whispered, "Because the Earth is about to be destroyed, a Jack wants to save the Earth, but Acaris disagrees. It's that simple." Cersei and the elf looked at Rory in shock. How can it be? The purpose of the Eternals coming to Earth is to protect the people here from being harmed by deviants, but Rory said that Acaris wants to destroy the Earth. This reason seems too ridiculous to them. But after thinking about it carefully, Cersei found that there seemed to be no more reasonable explanation than this. Why? Why would he do this? Rory shrugged, "There are good people and bad people in the world. There is nothing to be confused about." The repeated shocks made Cersei's mind a mess. Their mission was clearly to protect, so how did it become destruction? Rory sat on a wooden board and said softly, "A Jack taught me how to use cosmic energy. She is half my teacher. She also told me a lot of stories about the Eternals. If there was a secret, why would a Jack tell it to a stranger when he hadn't told it to his companions for thousands of years? If there were no secrets, then why did a Jack die?" Cersei decided to stay and listen to Rory's explanation. A bonfire was built next to the car under the starry sky. Rory and a few others sat around the bonfire while Anthony and Pain prepared dinner for tonight. Rory said as if he was telling a story, the Eternals and Deviants are actually the Celestials modified based on human genes. The Celestials will also plant celestial seeds on every planet with life. Once the number of lives on a planet reaches a certain level, the celestial god will be born, but at the same time, the planet and all life on it will be destroyed. The lives of countless planets have been harvested by the Celestials, and now Earth has also entered the countdown to destruction. So, Rory turned his head to look at Cersei. The light of the campfire flashed Rory's serious expression. He continued, Cersei, only you can save the Earth now. Are you willing to help us? Cersei has long been integrated into human society and has developed a sense of belonging to this planet. Rory cuts off the beginning and the end to tell a story adapted from facts, providing a sense of being needed and a sense of mission, with the purpose of guiding Cersei to help the Earth. After hearing this, Cersei's heart was indeed moved. But, Cersei, you are a natural savior and leader. That's why Jack chose you. Cersei didn't get carried away by Rory's words. She knew it wouldn't be easy for her to accomplish this task. Hesitantly said, but I really can't do it. Rory took off a 10 ring and put it on Cersei's hand, then activated the other 3 10 rings on his hand, gathering all his energy into them. The 10 rings on Cersei's hand immediately received the energy transfer, and a large amount of cosmic energy rushed into her body. Rory had been thinking that it was too much of a coincidence that the 10 rings happened to be able to deal with the 10 Eternals. This is a device that can conduct cosmic energy. As long as more energy is gathered to you, you will definitely be able to do it. Cersei felt it and found that her own strength had indeed been strengthened. Page 57. However, after Rory stopped supplying energy, her own strength returned to normal levels. If I had this, I might give it a try. This was what Rory had been waiting for, so he said immediately, Cersei, on behalf of all mankind, I thank you for your help. The strength of just a few of us is not enough. I need more companions. Cersei said firmly after making her choice. I'll arrange it. Rory took out his cell phone and called Ross, asking him to arrange a special plane to come over immediately. Ross naturally obeyed unconditionally. No matter where he went, he could mobilize military aircraft from the nearest military base as a means of transportation. Cersei began to plan a route. We'll go to Chicago to find Phastos, then Australia to find Tina and Gilgamesh, and then Golden Fruit in Mumbai. Finally, we'll go find the druids living in seclusion in the Amazon forest, gather everyone together, and return to the Tama spaceship to reunite with Mockery. As for Ikers, I want to persuade him again. Rory interrupted, if he objects or tries to stop me, I will definitely kill him, Cersei. I hope you can understand my difficulties. Cersei nodded bitterly. Half an hour later, a military helicopter came to pick up the few people, took them to Chicago, and then transferred to a transport plane from the military base there to fly to Australia. On the plane, Rory came to the elf, greeted him, and asked, I heard Jack say that you will never grow up. Is that true? The elf glanced at Rory, then nodded. Everyone else can enjoy a normal life, but she has remained in the form of a child for thousands of years and can't even fall in love. Rory raised the corner of his mouth slightly and laughed, I am actually a biologist, maybe I can help you. How can I help? The elf raised his head, with some hope in his eyes, but it quickly died down. Your inability to continue growing must be related to the cosmic energy gene in your body. I've just done research on this. If I can suppress this energy in your body, you'll naturally be able to grow normally. Really? Of course. Rory not only drew blood from the elf, but also from Cersei. The 10 immortals have different superpowers, but Rory still hasn't figured out how the energy of the universe works. He can take this opportunity to collect more blood samples. If he could gather all the superpowers of the Eternals, Rory might be able to become a true god on Earth. The plane landed in Chicago, and Cersei brought a group of people to Phastos' home according to the address, and Rory followed behind as if nothing had happened. Of course, Phastos couldn't be at home. After searching in vain, Cersei decided to look for other people first. Phastos hasn't been home for several months. It's not a good idea for us to just stay here and wait. Rory, please help find Phastos. Of course, no problem. Rory agreed readily, but this was destined to be an ending without an answer. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't deal with the revival of the celestial Tiamut, Rory would definitely capture all the Eternals for research. After picking up Bronsky the Abomination who came from New York, Rory took Pain the Steel, Anthony the Deathblade, and the Eternal Cersei and the Elves. The 6 of them changed to a military transport plane at the military base closest to Chicago and flew directly to Australia. Tina and Gilgamesh are living in seclusion in Australia. Tina's superpowers are similar to Rory's. She can use cosmic energy to materialize various weapons. Tina suffers from eternal demon syndrome. When she is sick, she will indiscriminately attack everyone around her. It is almost impossible for her to integrate into human society, so she lives in seclusion in a remote place. Gilgamesh can transform into a fist and gain greater power. Worried that Tina couldn't take care of herself, he stayed with her. When Rory, Circe, and the others arrived, Tina was sitting under a dead tree drawing something. Gilgamesh was not surprised by this and prepared dinner with peace of mind. Circe briefly introduced Rory, and then told Gilgamesh the news of the reappearance of the deviants, the death of Ajak, and the impending destruction of the earth. Rory came behind Tina and found that the person Tina drew was Alyssum, the six-barreled god. It wasn't until the other person finished drawing that Rory said, "You look like you need help." Tina turned her head and asked, "Who are you?" Rory, the biologist, came here with Circe. Tina turned her head back coldly and said softly, "You can't help me." "Maybe. Why don't I check you out first?" Rory took out a needle, thinking of giving it to Tina. At this moment, Tina's eyes suddenly turned white, and two weapons suddenly appeared in her hands. Mr. Rory was stunned for a moment, then immediately put away the needle. "Damn it, I'm having a seizure." Swish. Tina was stunned for a few seconds, then suddenly swung the weapon in her hand and slashed at Rory. Dang. Rory moved quickly. The moment Tina chopped him down, he materialized a shield to block her attack, and his other hand transformed into a long sword. "You hit me with a sword, I hit you with a sword," and the two of them stood there and started fighting each other. Soon the sound attracted other people not far away. Gilgamesh hurried over and knocked Tina unconscious with one punch. Gilgamesh helped Tina up and roared, looking at Rory with an inquiring look. Chapter 74, All the stories that deceive people are adapted from facts. Back at Tina's place, Rory took a blood sample while Tina was unconscious, then stood up and said, "You said she has eternal demon disease, which is caused by her past memories. Does treatment require erasing her memories again?" The other Eternals nodded. Rory continued, "The biological explanation for this is that her brain nerves can't withstand the stimulation and are acting as a self-protective measure. Erasing her memory can only provide temporary relief, and the next attack will only be more severe. After repeated episodes, her brain nerves will inevitably collapse." "Is there any solution?" Gilgamesh asked urgently. Rory nodded. "Of course, the easiest way to relieve nerve pressure is with medication. However, Eternals don't use human medicine. The only solution right now is to suppress the nerves and relieve the nerve conflict caused by stimulation." Before Gilgamesh could be happy, Rory continued, "There are no conditions for treatment right now, and we have more important things to deal with. I will help her with treatment after we save the earth. Tina is tormented by eternal demonic disease, the source of which is the Celestial clan. Countless images of destruction fill Tina's mind and are about to drive her crazy, so she will stand on the side of humans and the earth. Gilgamesh and Tina have been alone together for thousands of years, and he will also stand on the side of humans to protect Tina." Rory bribed them and expanded the lineup by 2 more people. After staying overnight, everyone set off to fly to Mumbai to find Jingguo, who was in the entertainment industry. Jingguo happily joined the team and brought his butler with him. Rory took blood samples from Gilgamesh and Jingguo one after another on the pretext of treating Tina's illness. Then he flew to the Amazon rainforest to look for the druids living in seclusion there. The druid's superpower is mental thought control. His combat ability is average, but his superpower is very abnormal. He can control a group, but his strength is not as good as Professor X and Scarlet Witch. In the original timeline, everyone gathered their strength to the druid, hoping that he would hypnotize the reviving celestial Tiamut, but it took a lot of effort to delay the celestial's resurgence for just a few minutes. Even without Icarus, the druid's abilities would probably not be enough to accomplish the task of saving the earth. When everyone arrived at the Amazon rainforest and found the druid's location, they didn't expect that Icarus had found the place before them. As soon as Rory and Icarus met, the atmosphere immediately became tense. After the last fight, Rory no longer had any concerns about this copycat Superman. Without the ability to fly, it would be difficult for Icarus to be ranked in A level on paper. It can fly and has strength, and its eyes can shoot out cosmic energy rays. It seems very powerful, but in fact it is only half full, and its lethality is really limited. If Captain Marvel fights Icarus, Captain Marvel will definitely win. Icarus. Circe stepped forward and tried to persuade him to change his ways. Icarus snorted coldly and said, "Are you sure you want to follow the stranger who suddenly appeared? But you killed Ajak, you shouldn't have done that. It was Ajak who betrayed the gods." Icarus argued. From their perspective, it is actually difficult to tell right from wrong, because Icarus and the Celestials do not take the earth and humans seriously. In their eyes, humans are nothing but ants. "Oh, you're just a lackey of the Celestials. There's no need to portray yourself as so great." Rory sneered, "It was you who betrayed your companions. I simply revealed the fact that you murdered Ajak. Court death." Ikaris was furious, and he rushed towards Rory at a rapid speed while emitting energy rays from his eyes. Bang! Rory blocked the ray and exchanged punches with Ikaris. Both of them retreated at the same time, but Ikaris's flying speed was faster. Before Rory landed, he picked up Rory and flew quickly into the sky. The ability to fly is the superpower that Luo wants most at the moment, but he can't get it. The fake Superman Ikaris carried Rory and rushed into the sky. On the ground, he was no match for Rory, and his most proud vision ray could not cause any harm. The easiest way to kill Rory is to throw him into outer space. Luo also guessed what Ikaris was thinking. He materialized 2 daggers in his hands and stabbed them into Ikaris's kidneys. Ikaris doesn't have a body of steel, so even an ordinary deviant can cause damage to the Eternals, let alone withstand Rory's attack. Ouch! Ikaris reacted quickly and threw Rory out immediately when the dagger stabbed him. Under the influence of inertia, Luo continued to rise. Ikaris glanced at the knife holes on both sides of his waist, feeling angry but also a little relieved. He was relieved that he reacted quickly enough, otherwise he would have been stabbed by Luo. Without Ajax healing, Ikaris's recovery is very limited. With a dark snort, he flew towards Luo again, ready to continue pushing Luo out of the atmosphere. Just as he was about to get close, a 3-meter-long golden sword slashed hard on his forehead. Dang! Rory couldn't exert his full strength in the air, but this blow still stunned Ikaris. Luo cut a bloody wound from the top of his head to the center of his eyebrows. If it was on the ground, Luo's full strength attack might even split his head in half. Ikaris' eyes rolled back and he fell into a brief coma. Page 58. After losing his lift, Luo began to fall rapidly. The wind whistled in his ears and his clothes were pulled by the air and flew around wildly. He put away the golden giant sword and transformed it into a golden armor covering his entire body. Luo adjusted his body direction and landed on his feet, then fell back into the Amazon forest with a boom. The cosmic energy burst out and formed a 5-meter-wide crater under Luo's feet. There was another boom sound, and Ikaris landed near Rory. A moment later, Ikaris woke up from his coma and opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was Rory holding an energy sword against his throat and staring at him with an incomprehensible smile. Ikaris was about to speak, but the next second his eyes suddenly widened, with confusion and reluctance in his eyes. Poof! The sharp blade transformed from cosmic energy pierced Ikaris' throat, splitting his cervical vertebrae in half. The fake Superman Ikaris died, and died with his eyes open. A few minutes later, when Rory's men and the Eternals followed the crash site, they only saw Rory dragging Ikaris' body back. Everyone looked at Ikaris' body in disbelief, and tears of sadness flowed from Circe's eyes. Rory came over and whispered, "I'm sorry, Circe. I didn't think of that." Circe shook her head, squatted down sadly, and gently stroked Ikaris' cold face with her fingers. The two of them once completed their wedding in front of everyone, but suddenly disappeared after living together for a while. Even though Ikaris had many faults, he was still the person Circe once loved. Just when Rory was about to say a few polite words to comfort Circe, a deviant monster suddenly appeared, grabbed Circe and was about to fly into the sky. Swish! Luo reacted the fastest, jumping up in an instant to catch up with Sissy, and a long spear appeared in his hand, stabbing it hard into the body of the abnormal person. Roar! The abnormal being in pain subconsciously loosened its claws, and Circe fell back to the ground and was caught steadily by Gilgamesh. At the same time, several abnormal beings rushed out of the forest one after another. The elves and druids who had no combat ability immediately dodged in panic. One of the abnormals rushed towards the steel-bodied Pain, and with a crack his skin hardened instantly. The abnormal's teeth were almost broken after taking a bite. Roar! Bronski roared and transformed into a hateful being, grabbing the deviant that was gnawing on Pain and throwing it away. Swish Deathblade Anthony took out his bone knife, dodged the attacking abnormal monster, and slashed with his backhand, but unfortunately the knife was not sharp enough and did not cause much damage to the abnormal monster. Gilgamesh and Tina joined the battle, and with two people fighting against one abnormal being on average, the pressure was not too great. Pain had no fighting ability and could only retreat while protecting the Pokemon who also had no fighting ability. Bronski transformed into the Abomination and grabbed one and pinned it to the ground and beat it up, while Anthony helped to finish him off. Just when Abomination was about to get rid of this deviant, a more powerful deviant Beast King suddenly appeared and slapped Abomination to the ground. As luck would have it, Tina suddenly suffered from the Eternal Demon Syndrome, and the Abomination and other abnormal beings were fighting, so Gilgamesh had to face the Beast King alone. The abnormal Beast King noticed Tina who was fighting against the Eternal Demon Disease and immediately turned around and rushed towards Tina. Gilgamesh wanted to protect Tina, but fell into the trap of the abnormal Beast King. Ah! The Beast King bit Gilgamesh's neck and inserted several tentacles into his body, transferring waves of energy from Gilgamesh to the Beast King's body. After a while, the Beast King's body began to change, and it actually evolved into a humanoid form. Throwing away Gilgamesh's body, the Beast King turned and aimed at Tina again. Die to me. At the critical moment, Rory, who had just killed a deviant, finally arrived at the battlefield. Before the Beast King attacked Tina, he cut off the Beast King's arm with a sword, leaving a huge wound on the Beast King's chest. Unfortunately, the Beast King absorbed Ajax's abilities and was able to recover quickly. When the Beast King saw the powerful man coming, he immediately gave up the idea of absorbing Tina and turned around and ran away. Rory originally wanted to chase the Beast King, but at this time the Druid and Cersei encountered trouble, so he had to turn around to help. With Rory's joining, this sudden battle was quickly over. Eliminate 5 abnormals and lose 1 Gilgamesh. I've arranged for a military plane to come over. Take the body back with you. It would be troublesome if it fell into the hands of that abnormal Beast King. The military plane picked everyone up and returned to the military base. During the rest period, Rory took blood samples and bone marrow from Icarus and Gilgamesh. They were already dead anyway, so it would be a waste to keep them. After the rest, we immediately rushed to the location of the Thanos spacecraft. There is also a lightning girl named Mockery in the Thanos spaceship. The lightning girl is very fast, but she is deaf and mute, and has a good relationship with the curry boy Jingguo. The problem now is that we don't know where the god Tiamut is, who is about to awaken, and there's no way to put him back into hibernation. Everyone on the Thanos spacecraft was discussing countermeasures. Rory then said, Ajak once told me that the general location is in the Indian Ocean, but the specific location may not be known until we go there. Then let's go. Cersei succeeded him as leader and immediately ordered a voyage to the Indian Ocean. The Thanos spacecraft arrived in the Indian Ocean and saw a volcano in the distance emitting thick smoke, which seemed like it could erupt at any time. After everyone landed, they saw the sea surging and the ground shaking. Tiamut will soon wake up. We must act quickly. Chapter 75, It's a huge mine. Whoever picks it up will own it. Volcanic eruptions shake the earth and magma gushes out from underground and the mountain. The earth sank, huge waves hundreds of feet high surged and rolled up, and 5 huge mountains slowly rose from the bottom of the sea. Rory took off his 10 rings and handed one to Cersei. Cersei immediately ran towards the volcano not far away, and the rest of the Eternals all surrounded Rory. Tina, the elf, the druid, the Indian curry man Jingguo, the lightning girl Mockery, including Rory himself, everyone poured their energy into the 10 rings. Huge amounts of energy were injected into the 10 rings, and the materialized cosmic energy emitted golden light and connected into a line, which was immediately transmitted to Cersei's hand on the other side. Rumble. Before Cersei could reach the destination, the ground beneath her feet suddenly opened up, revealing a dazzling golden ground. It turned out that she was standing on the palm of the god Tiamut, with no end in sight. Cersei shouted, pressed her hands on the golden ground, and immediately activated her superpower of material transformation. As the cosmic energy from other Eternals was transmitted, Cersei's matter transformation superpowers erupted, rapidly petrifying Tiamut's palm, and then gradually spreading to her entire body. Tiamut's golden palm reached into the sky, gradually turning white under Cersei's material transformation, and the speed of breaking out of the ground also stopped. But Cersei did not stop using her superpowers. With the injection of more energy, the transformed matter extended along Tiamut's arm towards the center of the earth, and finally to the head that emerged from the ground on the other side. Just when everyone was about to succeed, the abnormal Beast King who had escaped earlier quietly appeared behind them. The abnormal Beast King looked at everyone viciously, then rushed towards them at a rapid speed. Roar! The Beast King jumped high, ready to interrupt everyone's ceremony. Suddenly there was another roar. Bronski transformed into Abomination, jumped up and hugged the Beast King and rushed to the other side. How could Rory not be prepared, and there was more than just Abomination coming. Steel Body Pain and Deathblade Anthony, with nearly 30 super soldiers, rushed from all directions and rushed towards the Beast King together. Rory, who was transmitting energy, turned around and shouted, catch him alive. Half of the head of the god Tiamut has emerged from the ground. Cersei madly pours cosmic energy into it until Tiamut's entire body is petrified. After a moment, the fire of life in Tiamut's eyes gradually went out, and a crisis concerning the life and death of the earth was finally resolved. The Eternal suddenly collapsed to the ground due to exhaustion. Rory waved his hand gently, and the 10 rings in Cersei's hand instantly flew back to Rory's wrist. I'll go get rid of that thing. After saying hello, Rory jumped 100 meters and hopped twice before arriving in front of the abnormal Beast King. Roar! The Beast King roared and pushed the Abomination away with force. Just as he was about to stand up, Rory fell down. Wearing golden armor wrapped in cosmic energy, he clenched his fists and hit the Beast King hard on the forehead. Boom! The Beast King rolled his eyes and was knocked unconscious. Tie them up. Abnormal beings are excellent experimental materials, and this one is a super beast king that has absorbed the energy of a Jack and Gilgamesh, so its research value is even more precious. Then Luo called the captain of the Night Legion. Is everything arranged? The Night Corps captain immediately said, the military has sent 3 fleets to blockade the sea area. Luo nodded. Go tell Ross that this place will belong to me personally. Tell him to send a professional mining team as soon as possible. I want to move the laboratory here. By the way, ask him to provide me with equipment and construction resources. Luo didn't know what material the bodies of the Celestials were made of, but he knew that after being transformed by Circe, the bodies of the Celestials had become one of the hardest metals in the universe, adamantium. The quantity is large and the value is self-evident. Whoever can obtain more adamantium will have more say in the future world. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye after the god's resurrection incident. During these 3 months, several major events occurred. The first was that Ross successfully ran for the presidency of the Federation, bringing the Eternal Life Society he founded to another level. The second thing is that the international community is in chaos over the ownership of Tianshan Island, but no one dares to land on the island. Page 59. At the beginning, some people wanted to go up and try, but then they were thrown into the sea by Rory's #1 lackey, Abomination. The most serious one was the military conflict that broke out with India. Luo personally led a team of 30 super soldiers and directly destroyed an entire Indian fleet. India immediately became obedient. The third thing is that Luo moved the laboratory to Tianshan Island and built an urban factory on it specifically for mining adamantium. Luo landed on Tianshan Island by helicopter, and a palace under construction rose from the ground in the distance. Rory, it's time to say goodbye. Circe came over with a group of Eternals. Tina and the elf will stay with Rory, and once the laboratory is completed, Rory will solve their physical problems. Jingguo will return to Mumbai to continue his career as a Bollywood star, while Druid and Macquarie will pilot the Tama spaceship to search for Eternals on other planets. Circe is preparing to return to London to spend the rest of her life with her boyfriend, Dane Whitman. I'll leave Tina and the elf in your care. Feel free to call us if you need anything. Luo nodded, see you again sometime. After seeing off Circe and the others, Rory came to the newly built laboratory, where all of Rory's experimental materials were stored, including the living abnormal Beast King. After absorbing the energy of a Jack and Gilgamesh, the Beast King has completely transformed into an intelligent creature. Sitting quietly in the cage, he looked at Tina outside the cage. Rory came over and Tina, whose back was facing Rory, whispered, "This ugly thing killed Gilgamesh. You should let me kill it." Luo laughed and said, "Don't worry, I will make your wish come true. You just need to wait a little longer. The value of a live experiment is naturally higher, and it is a Beast King, so Luo must study it carefully." Tina didn't care for a moment, because Gilgamesh had been with Tina for thousands of years and helped her fight against the eternal demon disease. Unexpectedly, he lost his life at the last moment. Tina wanted to pull out the tendons and bones of the Beast King. "Just stay here and watch over it. Just make sure it doesn't run away or die. You can do whatever you want with the rest." Tina's eternal demon disease cannot be cured at present, but as long as she uses the inhibitor made by Rory regularly, it is basically unlikely that she will suffer from the disease again. Luo came to his exclusive testing area and entered his fingerprint and password to unlock the 20-centimeter thick metal door. After entering, I walked to the collection cabinet, which contained various blood samples, serums, and test tube medicines. All the experimental equipment, blood samples, and serums at the military base, including immortal Mr. Hollis, were moved to Tianshan Island. Seeing these, Luo felt a great sense of accomplishment. After working so hard for so long, I have accumulated quite a fortune. A blood sample of the fake Superman Icarus was taken for research, in an attempt to see if any clues to Icarus's flying ability could be found at the genetic level. However, the truth was more difficult than Luo had imagined, and it could even be said that he had no clue. Ding 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 ding. The laboratory intercom rang, and after it was connected, the cold voice of Deathblade Anthony was heard. "Doctor, President Ross wants to meet with you." "I know, I'll be there right away." Rory took off his dustproof suit and walked out of the laboratory. President Ross and a group of officials were waiting in the small square outside the room. "Dr. Rory." Seeing Rory come out, Ross greeted him with a smile. "Let me introduce them to you. They are all ministers of the Federation and also directors of our Eternal Life Society." Several federal ministers smiled and nodded at Rory. Luo raised his chin to indicate, then said, "Let's talk over there." The place where they were standing now was the core area of the construction of Tianshan Island. To the east was a palace under construction, to the north was Luo's experimental research center, and to the south opposite the laboratory was the temporary residence of his subordinates. Facing the west of the palace is a wide road extending to a temporary pier on the seashore. Many temporary residences have been built on both sides of the road. When Ross saw the architectural layout, he guessed Rory's intention. He was already building Tianshan Island as his own territory. Ross also saw many familiar figures here, such as 30 super soldiers using enhanced serum, the abominable Bronsky, and the 2 experimental volunteers Payne and Anthony that he personally sent to Rory. These people are either on patrol or guard duty or supervising construction. Luo Rui saw the look in the new president's eyes and said with a smile, "I am only temporarily borrowing these people and will return them to the military later." This explanation is to give face to the new president, but everyone knows whether it will be returned. It is impossible for Rory to build Tianshan Island alone, and it was he who helped Ross to become the president, so cooperation would be easier. Several people came to a temporary office and sat down. Luo Rui was the first to ask, "Mr. President, you brought all the ministers to come to me this time, it shouldn't be to reminisce about the past, right?" President Ross nodded and said in a muffled voice, "The international dispute over the ownership of Tianshan Island is still ongoing. I came here mainly to ask for your opinion. There are actually 2 islands of the gods, one is the head of Tiamut, the other is the right hand of Tiamut, and the rest are all buried under the sea and deep underground. Although strict precautions were taken at that time, the news of adamantium alloy was still leaked by some people with ulterior motives. As one of the 4 major metals in the universe, adamantium alloy is naturally desired by everyone. Whether used in industry or military, its strength will inevitably be greatly improved, and may even develop into 2 different levels. The gap will be as huge as that between Wakanda and the savage tribe in the neighboring country. There are even private companies that want to operate and mine underwater. If they are caught, their ships will be confiscated and their personnel will be sent to Tianshan Island to work as laborers in the mines. Currently, part of Tianshan Island is managed by the mining company, and the remaining miners are all Indians captured by Luo Rui. Luo Rui knew that Ross was also interested in adamantium alloy, so he said calmly, "I will share the adamantium alloy, but not now. Let's talk about it after we build this place. The construction of Tianshan Island cannot be done just by having people. Electricity, oil, population, food, etc. all need to be supplied from the outside world. Without the help of Federal President Ross, Tianshan Island would not have been able to develop into what it is today so quickly. Since Ross came all the way here, Rory couldn't let him go back empty-handed. I've prepared some samples for you to take back for research." Rory saved face for Ross. Ross walked down the stairs, smiled, said a few polite words, and then started talking about another topic. There are 2 more chapters tonight. Chapter 76, Warmonger Nick Fury. Dr. Rory, the potion of immortality. I've been very busy lately, busy building Tianshan Island and doing experiments. I only have 5 in stock right now. As usual, I need to send a blood sample from the user for testing first. The purpose of the detection is of course to prevent the Skrulls from sneaking in. Moreover, the potion is not given for free, they need to exchange it with real money. More supplies, more soldiers, and test volunteers, these are what Rory needs right now. After a long conversation, Ross boarded the plane with a group of federal officials. Ross looked out the window at Rory, who had turned and left and fell into deep thought. Ross had to admit the fact that Rory was already above the federal government. He controlled all the federal high-level officials and could influence federal decision-making and even the overall situation. Ross knew it was a trap from the beginning, but he had to jump into it. No one can resist the temptation of immortality, especially those who are at the top of power and wealth. Even if it is a dose of poison, they will drink it without hesitation. Many people think that spending huge amounts of money and resources to research and strengthen warriors or people with superpowers is to increase their strength. In fact, this is secondary. The real purpose is to break the limit of human life. Why can humans accept the Asgardians settling on Earth? Do they really think it's out of kindness? When Thor is gone, humans will definitely put the Asgardians, who have a lifespan of thousands of years, on the experimental table and cut them into pieces. It's not that no one has tried to get the formula of the immortality potion in Luo Rui's hands, and even conducted countless reverse engineering experiments, but the result naturally ended in failure. The reason why they haven't fallen out yet is because both sides still need to cooperate. If the secret of increasing lifespan is cracked, or when Luo Rui accumulates enough strength, that will be the day when both sides will fall out. After the plane carrying President Ross took off, Rory planned to return to the laboratory to continue his research. At this time, the Eternals elves came over and blocked Rory at the door of the laboratory. "Rory, you didn't forget what you promised me, did you?" Luo Rui chuckled, "How could that be? I have found the root cause of your inability to grow up. You just need to wait patiently." The elf questioned with a look of disbelief in his eyes, "Why did my body stop growing?" Phastos was once the intellectual leader among the 10 Eternals, limited to physical science. According to Phastos' theory, the only way for the elves to grow up is to give up cosmic energy. The elf firmly believed this, so he doubted Rory's ability. Rory brought the elf into the laboratory, opened the computer and retrieved the file. He said, "The Eternals have a nearly infinite lifespan. The reason is that under the influence of cosmic energy, the stem cells never stop producing blood, which promotes metabolism and keeps the body fresh. That is, as long as you can still use cosmic energy, your body will always remain in its current state." Rory didn't know whether the six-barreled god Elysium had lost his mind or why he had to transform an eternal child. Normally, the Eternals can grow naturally and give birth to offspring. For example, Thanos was born naturally. But the Eternals who have been transformed by the Celestials will completely lose the ability to grow naturally and reproduce offspring. To put it nicely, it is called transformation, but to put it bluntly, it is actually finding a group of slaves who work for free. After hearing this, the elf asked in surprise, "You mean I should give up my power?" The elf's purpose of staying was to grow up while retaining her power, so she was of course not satisfied with Rory's answer. Rory smiled and rubbed the elf's head. "Of course, it's not giving up, but suppressing it. As long as the cosmic energy is suppressed to a certain value, the other cells in your body will undergo subtle changes. Maybe your body's growth rate will be slower, but at least it can ensure that you grow up." When the elf heard that he could grow up, his unhappiness immediately disappeared. It doesn't matter even if it grows slowly, as long as it can grow up. She has waited for thousands of years, so she can wait a few more years. Rory's research wasn't entirely to help the elves. He also has the gene of God in his body, which is also a weakness of some magnitude for him. If someone used this type of inhibitor against him, theoretically he could be killed. Rory's ultimate goal is to transform himself into the most perfect person in the universe, so such weaknesses should naturally be eliminated. He even thought about having a child with a female Eternal, and then using the genes of the viviparous child to complete his own fake Eternal genes. However, subsequent experiments discovered that the Eternals who used cosmic energy could not become pregnant at all. The fetus would be washed away by the cells nourished by cosmic energy before it was formed. Page 60. Unless Rory's tadpoles can withstand the impact of cosmic energy. Nick Fury, who had not appeared for a long time, suddenly contacted Captain Marvel Carol that day. After the failure of the last operation, Carol stayed at the Asgard gathering place in Norway with several Avengers. Thor just came back a few days ago and is now planning how to get rid of the destroyer Rory. Nick Fury asked me to meet him. "I'm going out for a while. Please don't act before I come back." Thor didn't care. Although he dealt with Gore the God Butcher during this period, he lost Jane Fox forever. After that, Thor became addicted to beer again. After Captain Marvel Carol left, Thor turned to look at Dr. Banner and asked, "Who is that Rory? I just left Earth not long ago, why did such a change happen?" There are many different opinions about the true strength of Thor. In the final battle, Thor, holding Stormrage and Mjolnir, was still no match for Thanos, but Captain Marvel Carol was able to fight Thanos to a draw. Judging from the conclusion alone, Captain Marvel Carol may be slightly stronger than Thor. But the objective factor is that the decadent version of Thor is facing the fully healthy Thanos, and Iron Man and Captain America Steve, who can't even enter the A level, can only play supporting roles at the side. Captain Marvel Carol enters the scene at the last moment. She faces Thanos, who has lost his weapon and has been beaten by a group of superheroes. He is almost out of shape. It's hard to say who is stronger and who is weaker. But in Rory's opinion, Thor is actually stronger than Captain Marvel. Thor, who had just obtained Stormrage, almost killed Thanos, who had 6 gems. His strength was absolutely terrifying. Therefore, it is understandable that Thor did not take Rory seriously. After all, there are not many people in the universe who are stronger than Thor. On the other side, Captain Marvel Carol arrived at the agreed meeting place and saw Nick Fury behind a tree after landing. "Where have you been all this time?" Carol asked as she approached. Nick Fury shook his head and said, "The federal government has been completely controlled by Ross, and SHIELD has been labeled a defector. I can only temporarily evacuate my people. I just recently arranged a place to stay." After explaining, he asked, "Carol, what's the situation on your side now? After you left, Doctor Strange organized another operation, but it failed, and Rory chopped off one of his arms." Nick Fury was startled, but after a moment he calmly asked, "What are your plans now?" "Strange is going to get Wanda back, and together with Thor and me, we're going to deal with Rory. If Wanda joins, Carol doesn't think Rory has any chance of winning." Nick Fury pinched his chin and analyzed, "The federal government is now in Ross's hands. Ross got the life-extending potion from Rory. According to the intelligence I got, Rory now has a team of enhanced super soldiers. If we want to take action, we must gather an army. SHIELD rescued Luke Cage before leaving. I also found Clint Barton. James Rhodes is also here with me. I'll meet Spider-Man Peter Parker and Ant-Man Scott later. We'll try to gather all the forces we can to ensure the success. Carol didn't know yet that the Nick Fury in front of her was a fake, and nodded in approval after listening. There are also the Asgardian and Wakandan armies. It's best to gather them all. The Asgardians are descendants of the Aesir and the Vanir. Almost every Asgardian is as strong as Captain America, but they suffered heavy losses in the last war with Thanos, and now they don't have many capable warriors. Wakanda's equipment and technology are more advanced, but its individual strength is not strong. If the purpose is to deal with Rory, more attention should be paid to high-end combat power. However, Nick Fury emphasized the need to recruit more troops. Although Carol had doubts about this, she did not take it seriously. The real intention of the fake Nick Fury is not only to provoke a fight between Rory and the Avengers, but also to provoke a war between the Federation military and Asgard and Wakanda. It would be best to involve all of humanity in this war, so that the Skrulls would have the opportunity to rule the Earth. This fake Nick Fury actually appeared after the battle between Rory and the Avengers in New York. His purpose was to take advantage of the killing of Captain America Steve and Falcon Sam to provoke confrontation and war. We will split up. You go and persuade Thor to gather the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Warriors of Asgard, and I will contact the other superheroes and Wakanda. If the Star Raiders camp is brought back, the strength configuration will be almost the same as in the battle against Thanos. Carol, who didn't know this, immediately agreed to the fake Nick Fury's proposal. Back in the town of Asgard, Captain Marvel Carol recounted in detail the process of her meeting with Nick Fury. Nick Fury means to immediately gather all available forces and start the war before Rory is ready. Bruce Banner pinched his chin and was silent for a long time before he said, I still can't figure this out. How did we get to this point with Rory? Carol shrugged. It's pointless to ask me that question. It seems that the stronger the superhero, the worse he is at using his brain, and the same is true for Captain Marvel. Chapter 77 The Skrulls apply to join the battlefield. Carol didn't know, he only knew that Rory was the enemy and the murderer who killed Captain America Steve and Falcon Sam. Bruce Banner shook his head repeatedly, no, that's not right. When I first met Rory, he struck me as a relatively kind, ordinary person, and he had a strong interest in biological sciences. What does this mean? Carol asked puzzled. At this time, a voice came from outside the door, this shows that this person is not a born bad person. Carol and Banner turned their heads at the same time and saw Valkyrie standing at the door, her shoulder leaning against the door frame and eating an apple. The Valkyrie continued, Asgardians never judge a person based on their behavior or appearance. Instead, they look at their heart. Take Loki, the god of trickery, for example. Although Loki often does bad things, Odin and Thor never consider him a bad person. The Valkyrie walked into the house and threw the apple core into the trash can. She then said, I've never met the man you're talking about, Rory, but I know that for him to go from an ordinary person to a villain, even one who wants to destroy the world, something must have happened to him. Snapped. I remember now. Banner slapped his thigh and said, it was Rhodes. He recorded the video of Rory collecting Thanos' blood sample and said that Rory would be the next Thanos. Bruce Banner has a very high IQ and a good memory, and he immediately remembered everything that happened at that time. Carol was stunned for a moment and asked in confusion, just because he got some of Thanos' blood, we have to kill him? Banner shook his head. The risk does exist, but it's not enough to kill Rory. What I can't understand is why we should start a war, and why the person who proposed it was Nick Fury. It was Doctor Strange who first proposed controlling Rory, but it was Nick Fury who advocated for starting a war. The first action was to attack the federal military base under the command of Nick Fury, but it ended in failure, resulting in everyone being wanted by the federal government and having to hide. Now Nick Fury wants to gather the whole world's power to go to war against Rory, which is obviously unreasonable. You know, war and fighting are two completely different concepts. The impact is not only on the combatants, but the indirect influence can even radiate to the whole world. Rory is very close to the Federation and has occupied the resources of the God Island. He is the key target of attention of all countries. If a war is launched against Rory, the Federation will inevitably get involved. At that time, the Avengers are very likely to stand on the opposite side of the world. That's why Bruce Banner, who couldn't figure it out, asked this question. What do you mean? Are we just going to let it go like this? Thor, the god of thunder, never used his brain and continued, Thanos is not our opponent. We have no reason to be afraid of him. Banner refused and said, we should put this matter on hold until Strange finds Wanda. Didn't he say that Rory would destroy the world? If we deal with Rory now, won't everything be solved? Thor asked in confusion. Banner shook his head, Strange said the world would be destroyed because of Rory, but he didn't say how the world would be destroyed. If the world was destroyed because of our fighting, then the sinner would not be Rory alone, but all of us. The conflict between Rory and the Avengers is inevitable, and the war between Celestial Island and the Avengers is about to break out, and both are making preparations to deal with it. Almost all of the adamantium alloy mined in recent times has been used to arm the Night Corps stationed on Tianshan Island. For example, he made a pair of barbed gloves for the Abomination, as well as standard armor and weapons for the Knights Legion super soldiers. Today, Rory also designed a strengthening plan for Deathblade Anthony. Anthony, come with me. Anthony was originally a disabled soldier. He couldn't find a job and the military didn't give him more resettlement money, which led to a very difficult life for his family. Later, he volunteered to participate in Rory's genetic experiment. Not only did he become a superpowered person, he was also re-employed by the military and earned more money for his family. So Anthony was full of gratitude to Rory. Follow Rory into the laboratory and sit on the experimental recliner as arranged by Rory. Hold out your bone knife. Anthony did as he was told and slowly pulled out the bone knife from his broken arm. Rory picked up a syringe connected to a tube that led to a sticky silver ooze. This is the liquid adamantium I melted with a laser. I'll inject it into your bone knife later. If you feel anything bad, let me know immediately. Rory thought about transforming Anthony into a Wolverine, by transforming all the bones in his body into adamantium. However, Anthony did not have Wolverine's super recovery ability and might not be able to withstand it, so he decided to transform only the bone knife on the broken arm. After securing Anthony, he inserted the needle into the bone core and began to pour the melted adamantium into it little by little. Sigh. Anthony didn't feel much pain, but it was very sour, just like when a tooth leaks a nerve, and it feels sour and itchy with a little pain. The adamantium alloy wrapped around the bone knife bit by bit, blocking all the imperceptible fiber spores in the bone, and then wrapped the whole thing. After a moment, the bone knife completely turned into a sharp blade with a cold glow. Snapped. After untying the restraints, the aloof Anthony raised his arm to admire the brand new bone knife, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up slightly. How does it feel? Rory asked casually as he put away his tools. The adamantium alloy bone knife contracted and extended twice. Anthony said with a sigh, I didn't feel anything, but it must have become stronger. Abomination Bronski takes the position of captain of the security team of Tension Island, and Steel Body Pain and Deathblade Anthony are team leaders, each leading nearly 100 super soldiers strengthened by serum to guard the safety of Tension Island. The next day, Rory handed several inhibitory potions to Tina and the elf from the Eternal Clan and said, I'm going to be away for a few days. During this time, you two should take your medicine on time. If anything unexpected happens at home, remember to help me take care of it. The elf doesn't have much strength, but Tina's fighting ability is not weak at all. Rory has been using Tina to hone his fighting skills recently. Tina casually asked, where are you going? I'm going to do something small. Rory didn't explain, just responded casually and left the laboratory. Take a special plane to Washington. The situation is now very clear. In terms of individual strength, Rory is not inferior to anyone in the Avengers, but his overall strength is much worse. There are two ways to solve this problem. One is to continue to improve his own strength until he alone is enough to crush all the Avengers. The other is to create more enhanced warriors to form a legion that can compete with the three major forces of Asgard, Wakanda, and the Guardian Mage. The problem is that improving strength is not something that can be achieved with just a few words. Several months have passed since the revival of the gods, and Rory has not yet found a way to become stronger. The genes of the Eternals can no longer continue to improve his genetic level. Even if he has the blood samples of all 10 Eternals, he still cannot make a breakthrough in the use of cosmic energy. Rory knew that the road was not over yet, but he just couldn't find a direction. The other method of creating an enhanced warrior corps also has problems. The super large corps is mixed with federal military soldiers, and this entangled relationship makes it difficult to ensure the overall purity of the corps. Alright legends, that's it for today. Like, subscribe, and I'll meet you in the next audiobook.